The story begins with the main character reflecting that this time he made a mistake and all his supplies were depleted, and all the comrades who were on his team died. Moreover, this time he was in complete despair because the difficulty of this dungeon was too difficult for him alone. With this realization, he also reflected on the fact that he had promised his best friend that he would live. The guy felt a little guilty because he wouldn't be able to fulfill his promise. Therefore, if they meet in the afterlife, then his friend will be able to punish as he wants. He couldn't believe that he had finally reached his end. This endless game was actually very funny. However, instead of just slowly dying here, he was going to have fun, because this was his last chance. Suddenly, the system discovered that the owner had died, and the revival system was activated, and Wei Chen was linked to the owner. According to the rules of the system, every time the owner commits crimes, he receives death points. After accumulating a certain number of death points, the owner gets a better chance of being revived. After each rebirth, the owner will receive various generous rewards, so the owner must accept his death with courage, and become stronger in order to conquer new heights. As Wei Chen learned more and more about the system, he couldn't believe it and felt like he was hallucinating because he had read too many online novels before. Suddenly, Wei Chen heard that in order to get more information about the system, he needed to unlock this function himself. Since the rebirth system was activated for the first time, he would be teleported to his past. Realizing all the information he had heard, the hero could not understand how this was possible, and whether he really died right at the scene of the battle in that endless game. A bright light enveloped his body, and then he disappeared somewhere. A moment later, in another place, his body began to gradually appear. The system was unable to answer many of his questions, and he appeared in a completely different place. Regrettably realizing this, he understood that he needed to go through the tests of life further. As it turned out, he appeared in the university auditorium, and really went back in time. The teacher couldn't understand why Wei Chen was shouting so loudly, as if he had some questions. After thinking a little about the situation he was in, he realized that he could earn death points from this system by performing some grazes. And be that as it may, first you need to try. The resourceful guy decided to ask the teacher a question. The insidious Wei Chen wanted to know what color the teacher's bra was. The lady was dumbfounded by his behavior, and did not understand why the hell he dared to behave like that, and told him to get out of the audience. Soon after this situation, he received 10 death points. From that moment he realized that the revival system was true. Looking at his phone, he learned that today is April 13th, which means that the collapse of digital data will soon begin. Thinking in the corridor, he didn't understand whether it was really worth rebirthing him right before the very beginning, because he could have been allowed to rest at least a little. On April 13th at 12 a.m. terrible catastrophe struck the Earth. Countless people were drawn into alien spaces. The bodies of these people suddenly began to be converted into digitized data. Those people who were pulled into someone else's space were forced to take part in all sorts of adventures and games. You who successfully complete the game will receive various rewards, ranging from precious items and high-quality weapons, to even the most powerful powers and skills. Here, whoever cannot complete the game disappears somewhere right in the middle of someone else's space, not even the body itself remains. These games, leading people into other people's spaces, never end. They are called endless because they never end. New ones replace the old ones. However, since the hero now has the ability to be reborn, he also received a system. This time, he definitely wants to become stronger and be sure to protect all the people close to him. Suddenly, the teacher ran up and threw the book right at the guy's head, after which she began to ask who he was talking to, because in her opinion, he was here and did not rethink what he had done at all. Having recovered from the blow, the hero approached the teacher, because nevertheless, he thought a little and realized that in his past life he had a lot of chances to get death points. It's a pity that he didn't have this system then. The beautiful teacher did not understand what Wei Chen wanted from her. A moment later, the resourceful guy merged with the teacher in a passionate kiss. Immediately after this, he thanked her for the treat and pushed her away, because the hero received as many as 30 death points. The indignant teacher did not understand why he did this. Smiling, the guy only answered her that he did it because he wanted to have fun, and his game had already begun. As soon as he entered the classroom, he noticed one student and decided to think, if his memory served him correctly, then he was one of those mutated ones, and there are several like him in this class. The giant student was angry with the guy and wanted to know what the hell he was talking about, because with one blow he was able to break all his ribs. But as soon as he got even closer, he saw a sign that meant a sign of mutation. This event brought a faint smile to Wei Chen's face. And literally a second later an incredibly powerful blow followed, which destroyed the furniture on which the huge guy was sitting. And the guy himself lay unconscious, because the hero destroyed him with only one blow. In a state of shock, the teacher began calling the police because she wanted to talk about the violent incident, after which she asked that someone be sent to the classroom as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the hero knew that these people bearing the mark of mutation must be eliminated before they turn into zombies. At the very beginning, only a random part of humanity turned into zombies. From that moment on, the hero decided that he would not allow this to happen again. Meanwhile, the students were discussing why the hero did this. One of the girls suggested that it was because his girlfriend left him and immediately left for another guy, which is why he went crazy. Hearing these words, Wei Chen's smile appeared on his face again. Relatively recently, he was abandoned by a girl, now an ex-girlfriend. Her name is Qin Huan. The guy wanted to know how Lu Zhu felt when he hugged someone else's girl. The annoying dude began to make excuses, because Qin Huan was no longer his girlfriend, and he told him to accept that she left him, and the loser should know his place. But in fact, Wei Chen was not talking about himself, but the vice head of the basketball club, the president of the student council. He is also the head of an internet cafe. Qin Huan had countless boyfriends, and the hero was afraid that she had already. I lost count a long time ago and can't count them. The indignant lady shouted that he did not dare insult her honor and innocence, but the guy had an argument, and he asked how about showing her favorite guy a report on how many times her hotel room was visited by other guys. Lu Zhu immediately realized that this made sense, and he wanted to check the records of how many times other people entered her room, and the girl only tried to deny it. At the same time, the heroes received 40 death points, and the total number of death points of the owner reached the bet. This amount is enough to activate the possibility of rebirth after death. After rebirth the owner will be able to receive a certain reward, and he needs to treat death with all courage. As it turned out, the more a person begins to hate himself or someone close to him, the more death points the hero receives. Due to irrefutable evidence, Qin Huan admitted that she shared her bed with other men and asked not to kill her. Unexpectedly, the hero, using a chair leg, took the life of another girl. The deceased also had a mark on her neck, which meant she would have turned into a zombie. With sorrow, the guy apologized, but if he had not done this, a lot of people would have suffered. If the hero's memory did not fail, then there should have been at least 3 mutated ones in his class, and there was one more left. Suddenly, a girl came in and asked which of them called the police and what happened here. The newly arrived lady was told that a guy named Wei Chen suddenly went crazy and killed 2 students. They should hurry up and apprehend him. Seeing the girl, the guy immediately became happy and exclaimed her name Qin Xian. Pointing the gun at the guy, the girl wanted to find out who he was and how he knew her name. The worried hero wanted to say that he came here from the future, and right now they don't know each other, but at least Qin Xian is not dead, which is already damn cool. The girl, who did not understand anything, shouted that the guy should not approach, otherwise she would shoot, when suddenly a bullet began to fly from her pistol. But a moment later, a bullet wound was carried out directly in the head. When he was lying on the floor, the girl only realized that she had taken his life. Now was not the time to blame herself, and it was not her fault, it was only his fault. If she had not shot, then this maniac would have hurt even more people, Qin Xian thought. The lifeless body lay on the floor, but as a few seconds passed, it gradually began to disappear. The students watching everything that was happening did not understand what was happening here. It was all like a nightmare. Over time, the body completely disappeared. The system notified Wei Chen that the rebirth was successful. As a reward for the first rebirth, the owner should receive a beginner's kit, a primary nano ring, a technique for beginners, and 3 small life extension pills were obtained. With a smile on his face, Wei Chen knew that he had indeed been reborn. Apparently he had received a lot of good things that he could use. Qin Xian again saw in front of her a guy who had been reborn before her eyes. Pointing a gun at his head, she wanted to understand what was happening here. Trying to defend herself, the girl was holding a pistol in her hands, but the hero was persistent and began to hug her. She was still as impulsive as before, but that was precisely why he loved her very much. At the same time, televisions all over the country began to broadcast something that had not happened before. A certain creature named a penguin greeted the audience and notified that the long-awaited game called Digital Data Collapse had begun. And also, the penguin said that the first game will, in all likelihood, eliminate at least 70% of the entire human population. If the audience does not intend to lose their life, and wants to survive, then they need to try to survive as best they can. Absolutely all viewers began to think that their TV was broken, and this could not be broadcast on TV channels. Stunned, Qin Xian wanted to understand what kind of situation had happened. Meanwhile, Wei Chen couldn't believe that this was the beginning. This moment was exactly the same as it was in his previous life. That time there was the same stinking penguin. One of the girls began to tear out her hair on her head and experienced unbearable pain. This was the same mutated one that the main character missed. Her boyfriend started sticking up for her because she was his girlfriend. The fact that this was her boyfriend did not bother the bloodthirsty zombie at all, and she grabbed straight into his neck with her sharp teeth. In order to pacify the zombies, several pistol shots followed. The zombie did not react to this at all, only moving on 4 limbs. Due to the headshot, the zombie was not destroyed, which meant that she was an unusual mutant. Wei Chen was afraid that with his current strength, he might not be able to cope. It was not an illusion or a dream, and the guy shouted that if his classmates wanted to live, then they needed to get away from here. In this life, the hero understood that with his knowledge he would be much better. To avoid the zombie attack, Wei Chen threw one of his rewards at him. In order to deal with him, he jumped onto the window frame and began to call him. The mutated girl was getting closer and closer to the window. But it was not just like that, because the guy had a plan. Using his skill, with a deft movement, he pushed the zombie out, and she began to fall down. Having destroyed the enemy, the hero received as many as 500 experience points. Once he saw that he was given so much experience, he realized that this was indeed an unusual mutant. Qin Xian watched the guy and thought that when faced with such a situation, he could still remain so calm and unperturbed. Suddenly, the hero ran up to the lady to protect him from the zombies that were attacking right from behind. The disgusting zombie fell to the floor, because the blow was incredibly strong. There was no time to stand there stunned, so they began to run away. There was complete chaos going on at the university, and the heroes had a task from the system, not to die in 72 hours, difficult tasks D. The reward for completion was 2,000 experience points, and the remaining time was 71 hours, 23 minutes. Those who did not want to die should have followed the hero. Noticing the disobedient student, the teacher began to bully him. So did his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. The clueless policewoman had absolutely no idea why such strange things were happening here. In a panic, they all had to run away quickly because the walls began to collapse. Everyone who wanted to live in subconsciously began to follow Wei Chen. Someone ran to help a girl who was stuck under a destroyed wall. This was a teacher who wanted to help her student with all her might. An experienced guy ordered the teacher to leave, because that girl could no longer be saved. In fear and horror, everyone continued to run. The upset lady could not afford to do this to the girl. She could not afford to abandon her students in a difficult situation. And with all her strength she began to drag the poor girl who was lying under the rubble of the wall. But unfortunately, she didn't know what to do with it, because she couldn't pull it out. Coming closer, Wei Chen offered to drag him by the hand together. Together, they wanted to do everything possible to save the innocent girl. Fortunately, they still managed to do this, and the girl was rescued from the rubble. The teacher watched with joy as her student got out. Suddenly, it was discovered that only half of the girl was able to get out, and the rest remained under the rubble. The terrible zombie began to bite the innocent teacher, and she screamed in horror. Someone behind grabbed the zombie right by the hair. It was the main character, and he decided to neutralize half of the zombies. Taking her head with all his strength, he hit her directly, thereby neutralizing her with one blow. Experiencing severe pain, the teacher lay on the floor, and the hero received a side task, namely, saving the teacher received 100 death points. Wei Chen couldn't believe that the system has side missions. The teacher was bitten by a zombie, and the system wants to save her, but for her this is an unconditional death sentence. It will be very difficult to save her. No wonder they give so many points as a reward. And this meant that he could do whatever he wanted with the girl, and she wouldn't say a word to him, because he was saving her. Since the death system gave him a side quest, if he wants to get the reward, he needs to save her. Fortunately, The bite was shallow and not much poison entered the teacher's body. It was because of this that it was possible to use a small life extension pill. Its effect was that it had healing properties and temporarily neutralized the effect of the poison. He must first use a small life extension pill to slow down the spread of the poison. Then you should suck out the poison from the teacher's wound. The matter was very urgent, so you shouldn't blame the hero for being rude. Consequently, the guy immediately began to suck the poison out of the wound. Qin Xian couldn't figure out if they really had so much time to do this kind of shameless thing. As if nothing had happened, the guy stood up and said that he just helped her suck out the poison. Although it didn't cure her, it at least bought her some time so that I wouldn't spread through her body so quickly. The girl asked as he sucked out the poison with his mouth whether he could also be infected, but in fact, the zombie virus only infects people through wounds. Even if it gets into the stomach, it will not be a big problem, and it will not become infected, provided that there are no wounds in the mouth, such as ulcers or scratches. Watching the hero closely, the girl wanted to find out who he really is and how he knows so much about this mutation. Wei Chen only replied that when the time comes, he will definitely tell her everything, but now he needs to hurry and find a safe place. Some time later, events continued at the stadium. The survivors barricaded themselves in the stadium. They were all very lucky. If he had not killed 2 mutated ones in advance, then a third of them might not have escaped. Most of the survivors wanted to know how he knew so much about mutants, in addition to why these zombies appeared in the first place and why virtual text appeared in front of other people's eyes. Many were interested in what kind of tasks these were. Also, everyone had their own experience points, as if they were in a video game. Because one of the survivors read a lot of online novels on the topic of virtual reality, he knew that as long as they destroyed monsters and completed tasks, they could become very strong. Smirking, Wei advised the fat man to refrain from such thoughts. This is indeed very similar to what is described in online virtual reality novels. It was then that people became even more indignant, because they wanted to know everything about these mutants and the situation, what happened. It's actually very similar to the game, but in the games they can be resurrected, but right now they only have one life. Now they are nothing more than an ordinary group of chickens who have not received any skills or items, so they have no combat effectiveness. They are only able to continue their miserable existence until they are eaten. One of the survivors decided to show who was the strongest, as he had been boxing for the past few years and wanted everyone to see who the real chicken was. Suddenly, the insolent man's hand was intercepted. With a slight movement, the hero was able to avoid the boxer's blow and knock him over. The impudent boy fell to the ground, and he no longer had any questions about who was stronger here. He was handsome but useless. With his excellent boxing skill he could only impress stupid chicken-brained women, Wei Chen said. Even though he returned to level 0, his fighting skills and reflexes were still intact. Meanwhile, Qin Huan was outraged that this scoundrel said that she had a chicken brain. When they met, he was nothing more than an ordinary coward and doormat, but now he has become so strong. Lifting the teacher in his arms, Wei Chen told the officer that he would now go to the restroom to help the teacher get rid of the poison that remained in her body, and she would need to guard the entrance to the restroom from the outside and under no circumstances allow anyone to disturb his. Qin Xian felt strange because subconsciously she agreed to help him. The arrogant survivor suggested that something valuable was hidden in the recreation room, and this guy guessed it and therefore asked not to disturb him. The officer apologized to the guy and said that she couldn't let him in. I don't know, that they were in a very difficult situation. Meanwhile, events continued to occur in the break room. The teacher had already chewed through the rope. Taking off his t-shirt, the hero thought about the fact that her fangs had not yet fully grown, so he still had a little time before she completely became a zombie. To save the teacher's life, they will have to do not very decent things. Legacy of the Dead is a very specific book that contains training techniques. It has great effectiveness and is powerful, but it cannot be improved by ordinary and familiar methods. In a nutshell, it is a training technique that can be improved through masochism. At the same time, strange sounds were heard from the room. The indignant Qin Xian already wanted to find out what was happening inside. The zombie continued to strangle the hero, and he knew that if he did not get a promotion, he would soon turn into a zombie. The angry zombie began to bite the poor guy, and he did not want to waste his only opportunity to be revived. Fortunately, at the moment of the bite, a promotion followed. Legacy of the Dead was promoted to level 1, and a special skill called Blood Affinity was obtained, and the ability to regenerate was greatly enhanced. Due to the teacher sucking the blood from his body, her poison invaded him. It turns out that she received the antidote. And he spent a lot of effort neutralizing the poison in his body, and the guy needs a good rest. The teacher himself should be fine now. As it turned out, the teacher was not enough, and she wanted more. Taking the blood of a blood kin carrier can lead to unpredictable consequences, and this skill should be used with extreme caution. The teacher started doing strange things to the hero. Watching this, the guy did not understand at all what to do. Although Wei Chen was still too young to be a teacher, she was ready to close her eyes to this. The side quest was completed, and the hero was able to save the teacher, and as a reward for this he received 100 death points. The survivors were wary. A whole hour had already passed, during which time he definitely had to remove the poison from the teacher's body. Who knows, maybe there was a secret exit in the restroom, and Wei Chen guessed about it and ran away. As people discussed that they might have done something obscene inside and now they were ashamed to leave the room, or maybe there were food supplies there and they were already full of them. Qin Xian was also panicked. She didn't understand what the hell this guy was doing there. If these people's excessive emotions would soon get out of her control. One of the students found a metal stick near him, and he had one very terrible idea. He wanted to organize a riot so that all the students would rush into the common room in a crowd, because he did not think that this soft-bodied police girl would dare to shoot at them. A terrifying sound was heard in the middle of the stadium. Someone was trying to break into the barricaded door. Phys teacher zombie was banging on the door. He was a physical education teacher infected with a zombie virus. He was also offended by Tridovic because he pours him too little vodka, likes to eat raw eggs and protein, the time when students wear sports shorts. As he burst through the door, his tongue began to curl because he saw the students. He ordered the stunned girls to quickly put on sports shorts. A terrible and huge zombie began to attack the defenseless girls. Several shots were fired at the physical teacher's zombie, but the bullets seemed to fly off from him. From that moment on, the police realized that she had run out of bullets. Suddenly, an incredibly strong blow followed, which made the zombie fall to the floor. The powerful blow knocked the zombie several meters to the side. The savior was the same Wei Chen who apologized for making them wait so long. The lady was glad to see him because he actually saved her. Suddenly, she noticed something. He had scratches all over his back and she wanted to know what they were doing in the break room. The guy began to make excuses, saying that this is the most common phenomenon in the process of getting rid of poison, and they can do the same if she is bitten. Newly arrived zombies began to attack the surviving students, and they ran away in horror. The horrific dead continued to overtake the innocent students who could not fight back. Since it was an emergency, Wei Chen decided to borrow the policeman's gun. The stunned girl managed to warn that there were absolutely no bullets in it. Fortunately, the hero remembered that the girl preferred to store a spare clip here, and took it out. The embarrassed girl did not understand at all how he could know her secret, and in general know so much about her. Zombie Fizrik gradually began to rise, and ordered everyone to start pumping the abs for 100 repetitions, lie on their backs, and then lift their bodies. To ensure that everyone followed the command exactly, he took one of the girls by the hand. The terrifying zombie began to torment the girl and her clothes, and she screamed in horror. She asked the zombie physical teacher for forgiveness, but she didn't do the exercises. The giant zombie began to hiss and took out his tongue to eat the girl. The brave hero managed to get the borrowed pistol and put the zombie right in his mouth. The brazen zombie pervert was destroyed with one single shot. It was obvious that the highest priority goal at the moment was to level up as quickly as possible. The hero literally started running towards the zombies in order to gain as many experience points as possible. Masterfully wielding a pistol, he killed one zombie after another, without hesitation in his actions. Thanks to his skill, he received 400 experience points, and soon 50 death points. All arriving zombies were destroyed. The people watching were amazed at how the hero deftly and quickly dealt with all the zombies like lightning. Near one of the dead zombies, the guy discovered something interesting. He couldn't believe that these mobs actually dropped skill books. This was a headshot skill, and was only available to carriers of firearms. A direct hit to the head caused critical damage to the enemy, and hits to other parts of the body caused normal damage, and unfortunately this skill was not suitable for him at all. A caring guy gave this skill to Qin Xian. and she needs to click confirm to receive this item. A moment later, the system gave another side task in which it is necessary to save classmates. After the task is completed, the owner will be awarded 30 death points for each surviving classmate. Having seen the task, the hero realized that he had again received an unpleasant side task, in which case, he needed to go somewhere and find a small amount of supplies. Now it was in his own interests to help these guys stay alive. Immediately after this, he told all the survivors that right now they should go in search of food and water. While he was gone, they should strengthen the gate. There shouldn't be any other monsters left in the area that would be able to break through the gate. In surprise, the hero turned around because he saw that someone wanted to address him. The guy simply did not expect that his classmate would actually be so strong, and he asked not to take his words to heart, because he had said something about him or somehow offended him in the past. Wei Qin was amazed that the guy was adapting to the situation and sucking up to him. If not for the 30 death points that he could get for him, he would have thrown him to the zombies right now. Soon, the hero informed everyone present that the teacher had not yet recovered from his treatment, so no one should bother her, and no loud noises should be made. The guy also added that they should find supplies, and he would now go get them, when suddenly a girl stopped him and said that she wanted to go with him. She is a policewoman and wants to protect ordinary people, so she cannot let him go alone. The police sister said everything exactly the same as last time, as if she had fallen in love with the hero. The girl insisted that he himself was looking for his own death, and she wanted to protect him from this. Lu Zhu began to make excuses to Qin Huan because he did not have time to react, and asked him to forgive him. The guy literally wanted the girl to come to him, and he was going to feel sorry for her. His words were immediately followed by a strong slap right across his face. The angry girl shouted that today, everything was over between them. Meanwhile, events continued to occur outside the stadium. Wei Qin and Qin Xian went out in search of water and food. The frightened girl saw the zombie, and to calm herself down a little, she took hold of the hero's clothes. He immediately realized that the unprepared girl was afraid to be here. Watching the hero, she didn't understand how he wasn't afraid at all. It was almost the same as in horror films, only for real. The hero knew that this was just the beginning of a nightmare, all the worst things were still ahead. But he was ready to definitely protect her with all his might. At the university, the cafeteria turned into the zombie cafeteria. The zombies came straight to the cook to ask for something tasty. After listening to the client's wishes, the cook immediately began pouring out a portion of food. Seeing this, Zombie was incredibly happy. Suddenly, the zombie cook flew into a rage and began throwing food around. This upset poor Zombie, because he was left without lunch. At the same time, all that was happening was observed by the brave men who went out to buy food. They had to move slowly to avoid being noticed. And the main character was pleased with the front view as he climbed along the floor. Watching the girl, the hero also received 50 death points, and Qin Xian overcame her awkwardness and crawled on. The zombies knew how to communicate with each other, and one asked the other what he was doing. The deceased students who mutated had very well developed hearing and other senses of smell. Because of this, they could hear quiet sounds very well, so Wei Qin decided to cover the policewoman's mouth. The girl was indignant because she could not react otherwise, because he was looking at her from behind. Justifying his action, the guy began to say that he was just trying to train her ability to adapt to the situation and patience. Apparently, she was still not very gentle. The lady thought differently. In her opinion, he just wanted to please his little friend. If the skin on his chin was itching, then she could help with it, and she put the gun right to his chin. Some time later, they were still able to find the university supermarket, where there was a lot of food. It was a supermarket located inside the cafeteria, and they were going to take everything they could carry and leave immediately. The joyful girl immediately took the cake because it looked very tasty. The experienced zombie fighter immediately warned that they would not take him. They needed to take things that were easy to store and carry. And in this case, it's better to go get more mineral water and dry rations. The fact that the cake was taken away did not please the girl, and she persistently began to ask to give it back. In a rage, she literally shook the hero so that he would finally give her the cake. Unfortunately, the bargaining fell directly on the girl. The persistent sweet tooth was covered in cake. The cake was incredibly sticky, and Qin Xian had difficulty wiping it off, but the hero did not disdain and ate a small strawberry from the cake. The outraged girl asked the hero not to eat it, because it had been on her body. The guy couldn't believe that he had almost forgotten that this girl was a sweet tooth. If she finds something tasty, she is literally ready to kill a person. While sorting through the food, she meanwhile thought that this devil had angered her. Suddenly, she smelled a very strange smell. This aroma came from the room, the door to which was closed. The curious lady immediately started walking towards the door and was about to open it. With apprehension, she picked up the gun and gradually began to go inside. As it turns out, there was a utility kitchen for the cooks at the back of the supermarket. This smell was very similar to meat, although these smells were similar, but she had never smelled anything like it. To understand what was actually in the pot, Chin began to open it. It turned out that the hero knew what exactly was inside and tried to stop the lady. As soon as she opened the pan, she was stunned by what she saw. The terrible sight caused her to fall to the floor. The remnants of meat that only zombies ate were boiled in a saucepan. Out of nowhere, an unknown character appeared behind the brave men. It was a butcher in the cafeteria, infected with the zombie virus. The killed animals could no longer satisfy his desire, and the thirst for fresh flesh drove him mad. The zombie butcher's hook almost reached the girl, but the brave Wei miraculously saved her. With difficulty, the hero managed to do it until the hook was working on the innocent girl. Fortunately, the hero had airbags when he fell. At the same moment, the same butcher's hook wrapped around his leg. And a moment later they began to drag him somewhere with great speed. The zombie was extremely powerful, and was going to do terrible things to the guy. He threw it directly into the pan, and thus wanted to neutralize it. As soon as the guy got into the pan, the zombie cook immediately closed it so that he couldn't get out. The fire did not go out, and the water in the pan was boiling. The mutated cook was happy because the meat was cooked, and the lady did not understand why Wei Chen lost his life saving her. Suddenly, someone turned to the girl from behind. 200 death points were deducted from the owner's score. The revival was successful. The owner received the following rewards for the rebirth, namely, now he can control the undead through physical contact. The higher the level of the skill, the more targets he can control, but the time of use is reduced. The brave hero asked the girl not to cry ahead of time, and she was shocked that he was able to resurrect again. He was going to explain everything to her later, but first he needed to tame this guy, so she had to help him and get his attention. When using a taming skill, the estimated taming time is 30 seconds, and the taming will be invalid if left halfway through. Therefore, the girl could not be shy and come up with a way to attract the attention of zombies. Wei Chen had no doubt that the girl would be able to do this, because she was smart. At the same time, he climbed right on top of the zombies and began performing acrobatics. During this, the girls got the idea that the information about the monster said that it seemed to really like fresh flesh. Because of this, she immediately decided to take action and show him fresh flesh. The giant zombie immediately noticed this and began to approach the girl to get closer to the fresh flesh. The lady was extremely afraid because the terrible zombie began to approach her. She begged him to spare her. Suddenly, the zombie became passive. Having tamed the zombie, the owner received 1000 experience points, and the skill level increased to the 3rd level. With a snap of his fingers, the hero could control a huge zombie and order him anything. The girl began to feel sick from the experience and experienced incredible stress. Qin Xin still didn't understand anything, but she wanted Wei Chen to tell her what was going on, and why he could resurrect and how he controlled this zombie in general. After looking at the girl, the guy first concluded that she needed to get dressed. She admitted that she did this only to save him, and not for the sake of any of her strange addictions or hobbies. And now, she wanted to understand what secret his body contained. Simply put, right now they are in the game. As far as his knowledge is concerned, he was just lucky to have played similar games before. As for resurrections and the ability to control zombies, this is because for every task he completes, the game gives him a reward. Hearing this, the girl didn't quite understand what he meant, but right now they needed to take all these supplies to the stadium, so they headed out. The resourceful hero smiled and asked her not to worry, because they could catch a ride. First, all the supplies were collected in several bags, and with the help of a tamed zombie, he began to pull a cart on which there were daredevils and food. But it was too dangerous, as if they were seeking death by using this zombie as a horse. Pushing everyone in his path, the hero received 50 death points for each zombie he shot down. Bravely driving the cart, at that moment the guy realized that he needed to change course right now. Like lightning they flashed through the dining room and gradually began to make their way to the stadium. Some time later they arrived, and Wei Chen thanked the zombie for helping, because then they would have spent much more time on the road. In recognition, the zombie chef held out his knife. It was a meat knife. It had the effect of causing 10% more physical damage. The butcher really valued his meat-cutting knife. With this knife he cut a lot of meat products. Wei Chen thanked the zombie for the gift, and began to say goodbye to him. He asked him to remember to eat on time to maintain his shape, and try to switch to a zombie diet, and eat as little meat as possible. The clueless girl thought this was disgusting and began to pull Wei Chen towards the stadium. This food and water should be enough for everyone to support until the very end of the game. Everyone will be able to get their own share. If someone is dishonest, then the hero asked not to blame him for cruelty. The brave man handed the noodles to one of the survivors and asked if he would like to take a portion to Qin Huan. The guy who took the noodles admitted that he broke up with her. Of course, everyone was right, the two of them are completely different people. The exhausted girl planned to die of hunger rather than go with a bashful face and ask people for food. Wei approached her and said, "Now is clearly not the time to be ashamed of anything, now the most important thing is to survive," and he did not hold a grudge against the girl. And he didn't hold a grudge against her because there are more important people for him now. The rejected girl wanted to understand what kind of more important people were around him, but the hero only turned away from her and began to smile. The prudent policewoman wanted to understand where the guy was running again, as if he was shirking work again. Smiling, he noticed how controlling the lady was, and reported specifically for Officer Qin that he had just gone to the toilet. Qin Huan, who was watching this, did not believe it, and thought that the hero should still have at least some feelings for her. Some time later, night fell, and the remaining time until the end of the game was 58 hours and 11 minutes. Waking up, the sleepy guy decided to go to the boys' room. Upon entering, he first began to calmly wash his hands. Suddenly, in the reflection of the mirror, he discovered Qin Huan. She stood in front of him, after which she began to come closer and closer to be as close as possible. The stunned guy did not understand what his ex-girlfriend was doing in the toilet at such a late time. The lady approached him even closer, touching his face. She asked if Wei Chen thought she was beautiful. Pulling back, the guy knew that in the past he had gone out of his way to get them to date. If she wasn't beautiful, he wouldn't have tried so hard to get her. Qin frankly admitted that she actually loved him, but he used to be so sloppy, and she always liked strong men. And now, he is her ideal. After all, he became so strong, brave and courageous. This girl paid attention to him only when she realized the danger of the situation in which they are. She wants to gain his favor so that he will protect her. For that matter, Wei Chen was not going to stand on ceremony with her. With deft movements of his hands, he managed to tie her to the post in a few seconds. Since this is the girl's first time doing something like this in this way, she asked Wei to be as gentle as possible. Laughing, the guy took out the tape and said that it would be really gentle. The girl's mouth was sealed with tape, and she could only moo. While she is here, she can entertain herself somehow, and tomorrow he will try to get up early, and if he does not forget, he will free her. But if, by chance, Wei forgets to free her, then the girl can only rely on herself. Realizing the complexity of the situation, sweat began to flow down the girl's face. She was nervous and mooed with all her might. Watching the girl, the hero thought that she seriously believed that he did not value his handsome teacher and attractive police girl, and really thought that he would choose Qin Huan instead. The excited girl began to cry and looked in a completely different direction. At the same time, the hero talked about how girls shouldn't be afraid, because zombies won't be able to enter here. Suddenly, a zombie teacher bursts in, the same teacher whom the hero treated. Although his blood prevented the teacher from becoming a zombie, it appears that her mind is still affected by the zombie virus. With the skill of Corpse Tamer, it would probably be possible to take control of the teacher, but her power is so great that he could not suppress it. Literally overnight, the teacher developed sharp fangs, her eyes changed color to red, and she was bloodthirsty. The zombie began to drink the guy's blood, which meant that his blood was addictive. He hoped that he could subdue and control the teacher before she drained all his blood. Wei Chen only had a few drops of blood left in his body, but fortunately, he was able to tame the teacher, and the Corpse Tamer skill gained 1200 experience points and was upgraded to level 4. Events continued to occur the next day. Yawning, Qin Xian thought that she slept very well, and she felt incredibly comfortable at night. Entering the toilet, she met the hero, who was exhausted, and the teacher was sleeping on his lap. The indignant lady was amazed that the hero seemed to have become a zombie. But this was not the case, and Wei Chen asked not to point the gun at the man and let him tidy up a little. Qin had no idea what his teacher was doing here, and she wanted to know what the hell was happening to her. As it turned out, the teacher was still aggressive. She was a level 5 half-zombie, and her skills were sharp claws, as well as a fragrant eater. At the moment, the guy could control her with the help of a tamer, and also, her body became stronger due to the zombie virus, so she could become a very important assistant for him. Speaking of which, the teacher's clothes have become worn out and unusable, so he uses his death glasses to find a suitable outfit as well. Wei Chen picked out a ghost suit for the teacher. It had the effect of increasing agility by 5%. This is a military suit made of special leather, not only light, which gives the wearer agility, but also very seductive. This suit is highly not recommended for male representatives. The guy really liked this suit, but the girl thought he was a pervert. All the survivors were amazed at what kind of costume teacher Ouyang Shi had. People really liked the way it looked on her. Although teacher Ouyang Shi was infected with the zombie virus, with special treatment she returned to normal and her physique became stronger. Immediately after this, the hero decided to test the teacher's abilities. He threw the pipe at her so she could go and break it. Suddenly, the zombie girl grabbed her with her teeth, and it was as if the dog had brought it back. It looked like the guy trained Master Ouyang Shi to be a dog, but in fact he ordered her to split the pipe, not bring it. Qin Huan watched all this and considered this game incredibly depraved. Suddenly, the surviving fat man shouted that a lot of zombies had gathered outside the stadium. Looking out the window, Qin Xian and Wei Chen found them, and it was true. The experienced policewoman immediately assumed that, apparently, they were not going to attack the stadium, and it was unknown why they had gathered at the gates. The guy at the same time knew that although by their nature these zombies were not conscious. In fact, they are all monsters that are controlled by this game, and he was afraid that it was now unsafe to be in the stadium. The hero decided to tell everyone the bad news that the stadium gates were simply swarming with zombies. Most likely, in the near future all these zombies would attack the stadium. The survivors believed that when the zombies attacked the stadium, Wei Chen would definitely be able to protect them. It was impossible, there was nothing to hide. The hero was really strong, very strong, even just relying on his own strength. He was unlikely to be able to withstand such a huge crowd of zombies, so they hoped that they will join him to fight against all the zombies together with him shoulder to shoulder. The worried people knew that if they were bitten, they would turn into creatures that thirsted for flesh. They also thought that their strength was not enough to defeat all these zombies. To add confidence, the hero handed over an inhibitor that he used to cure the zombie virus in the teacher's body. If they were bitten by a zombie and took his medicine in time, they would not be able to turn into zombies. In addition, he was going to teach them some effective fighting technique against these low-ranking zombies. The ability to use these skills is more than enough. Qin Xian immediately knew that it was Wei Chen's blood, and no wonder he was as pale as a toadstool this morning. It was all because he took too much of his own blood. I didn't hear the answer. The guy decided to act differently and asked why the survivors were such cowardly chickens. They continued to remain silent, but he did not force them. If one of the guys shouts 3 times that he is not a man, then he does not take part in the battle. After all, a man will not hide behind a man's back and beg him to protect himself, and it is unknown what they will do when there is no one to hide behind, and they are faced with danger. The surviving guys were immediately indignant, because they believed that the hero was taking on too much, and he had gone too far, because he dared to call them cowards. The bravest and fattest one said that he was ready to fight against these zombies. He didn't want those rotten corpses to look down on him, and he would rather die in battle than hide like a coward. The guys immediately realized that they did not want to be considered cowards either, and they were also ready to fight, because even the fat man went into battle. If Fatty Xiaopong had the courage to go into battle, then they were also ready to go, and were not afraid of those stinking zombies. The Shy class president also decided to take the lead. A lot of brave guys gathered and they wanted to go with the hero to fight in the battle against the zombies. Watching what was happening, Qin Xian couldn't believe that Wei Chen was using the reverse psychology method and was able to inspire all these students to give the zombies their last fight. There was only one of the guys who said 3 times that he was not a man. The hero only refused that he understood him, and they, the men, would protect him and the rest of the girls. And those who have eggs went with Wei Chen. There were 47 hours and 25 minutes left until the end. At the same time the guys received their personal weapons. One of the weapons was a standard machete. It was very easily damaged. This machete was of very low quality, so it could only handle 1 or 2 non-scoring zombies, and then it would break. The students did not quite understand why there were such dangerous objects at the university stadium. One of the guys knew about weapons and knew that this machete was of very poor quality. Hearing this, the hero was confused because these were the cheapest weapons he could find in the system store, and hell, even so, he spent 200 points on them. They didn't have much time to train, so the guy was going to teach them just some of the simplest techniques. The technique was called the 13 Techniques of Ning Feng. According to legend, these techniques were created by the god of the ball Ning Feng. They are easy to learn, although the techniques are simple, but if you practice hard, the power of the technique can be colossal. The hero began to talk about this set of techniques, and the students did not have to learn them all, they only had to learn 3 or 4 of them. Thanks to these techniques, dealing with low-rank zombies will not be a serious problem. Thanks to his father, one survivor knew some of the basics, so it seemed his training would go very smoothly. At the same time, the quick blows made it difficult for the fat man to breathe, and he asked to be allowed to rest at least a little. Wei Chen, watching them, thought that he was demanding too much from them. These cockerels on ordinary school days simply skipped physical education classes, they have no tone, and he also requires them to study fighting techniques. For them, these techniques were really too complicated. Suddenly, someone turned to the hero. It was Qin Xian, and she saw that the guy was teaching them the art of swordsmanship, and asked him to teach her too. She was the only one among everyone who knew how to handle firearms, and the hero did not understand why she wanted to fight zombies in close combat. The girl admitted that this happened because her ammunition ran out, but the hero was ready for this, and bought ammunition for a pistol with all the remaining points. Seeing this, Qin Xian was amazed. She wanted to know where he found so many supplies, and it seemed like she was sleeping and it was just a dream. 1 point can be exchanged for 10 rounds of ammunition, and 500 rounds of ammunition should have been enough for the girl, and she had no need to know where he got all these supplies from. With the help of the girl, the hero was also able to get 50 death points. However, with that much ammo, she could get some shooting practice. The caring hero began to help her, pointing out that she was holding the gun a little incorrectly, and in such a position it would be very difficult to hit the target directly. He decided to tell her how to hold the gun and aim correctly, and then how to shoot. The lady noticed that the guy began to pester her again, and rebuffed him. Suddenly, one of the survivors discovered that the hero had left them and ran to his baby, although he promised to teach him combat techniques. A moment later, Wei Chen was already running towards his brothers because he was going to teach them the next fighting technique, and Qin Xian realized that this guy was really very strange. The remaining time until the end of the game was at 4 hours and 3 minutes. The trained guys were as fast as the wind, and they were ready to cut through the waves with their blows. If I watched them, Wei Chen knew that he had trained these guys well, now they should be able to handle the upcoming battle. A wave of zombies was approaching, and players would need to be prepared to take on the challenge. Finally, the time of the brave had come, and they were ready to fight back. Many zombies immediately ran into the building. One of them was the principal, who told all the students that they were expelled. This was indeed the director infected with the zombie virus, and he enjoys trampling on the self-esteem of students, hates it when students dare to resist him and are willful. Unfortunately, the director has always been rude and harsh, which is why students are still afraid of him. Well, now there is no need to be afraid of him, he has turned into a zombie, so by destroying him, they can overcome their fear. The guys began to recognize him as this bastard who constantly disgraced them in front of everyone, even in front of their parents. A vengeful guy wanted to destroy the arrogant zombie who ruined his life. At that moment, the hero only managed to shout for the guy to be careful. Suddenly, Zombie discovered the guy who was trying to destroy him, and with all his strength, with his powerful hands, he threw the weak boy aside. The blow was so strong that he was slammed into the wall. Feeling all the pain from the blow, the guy could not believe that the director had become so strong. The terrible director was approaching, and he considered everyone to be scum and trash. The zombies' scream deafened the students, they were offended, and it made them sick. The zombie pointed out that they were all garbage and their lives were a waste of air, water and food, and he ordered them to leave this school. With every second, the director, strengthened due to the zombie virus, was getting closer to the poor students. They could no longer tolerate so many insults. Suddenly, Ouyang Shi began to run towards the impudent director. This angered the angry and elderly scoundrel, but he was ready to attack. The lady was also not easy. She sent a fist that headed straight towards the zombie. And with all her strength she hit him right in the head, because of which his neck was twisted several times. The woman could not allow this arrogant director to communicate with her students like that. Wei Chen was happy and amazed that the teacher had finally come to her senses. The woman at the same time could not understand why the hell she was dressed so vulgarly. Meanwhile, the director recovered from the blow and began to turn his neck. He couldn't believe that someone had decided to resist him. The horrible zombie was going to kill the poor girl. Ouyang Shi cried and begged him not to touch her. The brave hero protected the innocent teacher a moment later and stopped the zombie. The puzzled guy didn't quite understand why there was a C-class zombie on the first wave. Based on their current strength, they simply couldn't cope with him. After considering the next steps, the hero said that the teacher's body had strengthened and become stronger. Now she must fight with them. The woman did not understand what kind of battle was taking place here, and what the hero was talking about. Although she regained consciousness, she thereby lost her innate ability to fight. A loud shot sounded. The bullet hit the zombie director directly in the head. It was Officer Qin Xian, who protected innocent people, and walked straight into the pumpkin. This did not stop the director at all, and he continued to attack. This zombie was too strong. Even a direct hit from a bullet to the head did not kill him. It is necessary to put the teacher into a half-zombie state so that they have at least some chance of victory. Approaching the girl, Wei Chen wanted to tell her something. Suddenly, he began to insult her, and thereby received 60 death points. Thanks to mental stimulation, her body began to turn into a zombie. The enraged lady began to attack the hero, and he, in turn, received an additional 70 death points. Having discovered this, the director found a weapon and began to act. Oddly enough, this was also noticed by teacher Ouyang Shi, who seemed to know what to do. The angry zombie was approaching the couple with incredible speed, who were arguing among themselves. But the teacher was not an easy zombie. She had superpowers that were many times greater than the strength of the zombie director. The hero was only too happy about it, and wanted to finish off the zombies together with the teacher. The girl did not tolerate this, and hit the guy with all her might, and he apologized for poking her at an old sore and bringing back painful memories. The owner received 30 death points, and was going to finish off this asshole, and then settle the score with the other zombies. At the same time, Qin Xian understood that the teacher's anger was completely justified, because she was a girl. If Wei Chen said this to any other girl, she would also be angry. Incredibly powerful blows followed straight at the impudent director. Wei Chen also did not stand aside and used Ning Feng's 13 techniques. As long as he continued to fight alongside the teacher, they would have no problem destroying the director. Suddenly, the zombie exclaimed and ordered the rest of the zombies to go forward and destroy people. The guy was amazed by this, because he completely forgot that he had assistants. And his classmates are now in a bad state of mind and cannot fight against them. Thinking that this was the only way out, the hero exclaimed that they were a bunch of weak-willed idiots, and could they really end the fight and die with just a few words? They immediately fell into a depressed state of mind and stood rooted to the spot. However, despite the words he said earlier, teacher Ouyang Shi continuously fights with the director. All the students sincerely believed that trash like them simply did not deserve to live and should not be a burden to others. Hearing this, the guy realized that nothing could be done, and he would have to resort to this method to inspire the guys to fight. Immediately after this, he took out something unusual. This item belonged to teacher Ouyang Shi. It will go to the one who kills the most zombies. For this the students were ready to go into battle without armor. The blood began to boil in their veins, and they were ready to fight to the last drop of blood. With courage and dexterity, they began to fight and began to destroy the zombies that were approaching them. The students incredibly wanted to receive an award that would inspire them to perform great deeds. Qin Xian was amazed at how much the students were motivated by such awards. And the hero himself believed that they needed to add more strength and show as much activity as possible. He also added that Officer Qin Xian could also give an item from himself to the winner as an additional prize. At this moment, the hero also realized that he could now devote himself entirely to the battle. The teacher easily destroyed the arrogant director who tried to harm the students. This was the hero's chance to cause as much damage as possible, and he again used Ning Feng's 13 techniques, namely the Howling Blade technique. The director was defeated, and thus the game was over. The hero lacked 2,000 experience points to increase his level to the 6th. Excitedly, he realized that he had finally completed his work. Suddenly, an unknown trace began to appear on his finger. He finally killed the boss of this wave, and some weapons began to appear in his hands. The task was completed. It was to survive for 72 hours, and the reward for the mission was given 2,000 experience points. The warriors' levels were also increased to the 4th. They literally felt that they had become many times stronger, and they had a surge of strength. The game was over, and the penguin congratulated them. Compared to other instances of the same groups like them, their survival rates are simply incredibly high, but do not become arrogant ahead of time, because this is just the beginning of the game. One of the survivors recognized the hologram as the same stinking penguin that had brought their world to ruin and nearly killed them all. He was going to destroy it and then fry it in soy sauce. It was just an intangible projection that did no harm at all when struck. Penguin also said that compared to them, he is a being of a higher dimension, so if they want to continue to drag out their miserable existence, then they should try to survive the next mission. It will begin soon after this, but for now, they can enjoy the time that they can spend in safety. The unknown creature also insisted that they make every effort to please him, because he is an ordinary creature, and not some kind of demon, after all. The outraged survivor wanted to capture the penguin so he could quickly tell what happened to his sister and what the outside world looks like now. Someone behind asked the impulsive guy not to be so angry. There's no point in confronting this guy right now. The embittered boy didn't think so, and he wanted to know why Wei Chen knew so much about this game, and what he knew in general, and what his goal was. The students immediately began discussing how the hero knew so much about this game, as if he was up to something. This world is full of things that they can't understand right now. This game is no exception. In fact, the hero has long experienced a similar situation, and if it weren't for him, they too would have become one of these mindless zombies, and this is how they thank their savior, and accuse him of conspiracy. Bowing his head, the guy apologized, because he was too impulsive. It was all his family's fault, and he was very worried about his sister. Without hesitation, the guy admitted that unfortunately his family, as well as his loved ones and friends, were not as lucky as he was. Right now they most likely became part of a huge herd of zombies. The outraged students assumed that the guy was taking on too much by declaring something like this so loudly. Others began to cry from the realization that their families were already dead. Wei knew that right now the most important thing was to live. This is a game, although it is very dangerous, it is full of countless possibilities. They just need to stay alive and become stronger. Maybe they could find a way to bring back and save others, and the guy was going to do everything he could to keep people safe together. Listening to him, Qin Xian concluded that when he is serious, he is quite handsome, and she begins to like him more and more. A moment later, the guy remembered another detail, namely, the reward that he promised to his classmate that he would kill the most zombies. He needed to show his experience board to confirm the number of zombies killed. Ouyang Shi also watched everything that was happening, and clearly wanted to take revenge on the arrogant hero. The combat teacher took him to a combat training to get revenge, and the guy began to apologize because he made a stupid mistake. Qin Xian took back what she said about this guy, because he really is an asshole. Some time later, the mission is completed and the area temporarily becomes a safe zone. Of course, as before, after completing the first mission, this area will be converted into a safe zone. The person with the highest level located in the security zone will automatically be appointed as the manager of the security zone, and the construction strategy should be planned with all reasonableness. People wanted to understand what this meant as a safe zone, unless they had completed the mission and were not automatically supposed to be safe. But this is not true. Even today most areas of their world are danger zones. Only a few areas can become safe zones. The peculiarity of these zones is that dangerous creatures cannot break into them. So this safe zone gives people the opportunity to take a little break. And zombies that fall into the force field of the safe zone die right on the spot. One of the survivors suggested that while they were at school, they would be able to live happily in complete safety. Not all students thought so. Resources from school are limited, so when they run out of them, they will have no choice but to go in search of supplies. But it's not just that, after a certain period of time the barrier of the safe zone will collapse and will not be able to contain these creatures, which will lead to the invasion of monsters. They are given the opportunity to breathe and should not waste it in vain. They need to make enough fortifications so that when the barrier disappears, all players survive. However, you need to be confident, because the most beautiful, talented and simply the best of them has become the manager of the safe zone. He will definitely lead them to create the safest possible zone that will be able to protect as many people as possible. The survivors, despite the fact that he saved them all, still wanted to hit him, because he again began to show off like he was mentally retarded. The lady knew that even though he was an idiot, in the current situation, apparently, I had nothing left but time to obey his orders. Because of this, Wei Chen decided to give his first order to the girl. It was that at night she would have to come to his room and give him heavenly pleasure. The girl agreed with gritting teeth, and a moment later she threw him to the floor with all her might. Flying in the air, the hero began to apologize because he was wrong. A few days later, events continued to occur in the evening. A mother and her daughter were running from terrible zombies on the street. Bloodthirsty killers were going to attack the family to destroy them. Someone was watching everything that was happening while sitting on the roof. The fleeing family soon noticed a terrible thing. They were stuck in a dead end and didn't know how to get out. The mother, hugging her daughter, hoped only for the best. She tried to protect her daughter with her body from the zombies that were already approaching. Starting to cry, the girl screamed and begged for help. Brave Wei Chen jumped out, because no matter what difficulties you face, the main thing is not to be afraid. Zombies were on all sides, but the hero did not even think about retreating. Taking out his knife, he planned to face adversity with a smile on his face. The best way to get rid of fear is to confront it. Mother and daughter were amazed at how brave the guy was for saving them. Smiling, the hero greeted the two girls, and was glad that he could save them. Pointing her finger at the hero, the girl suggested that this guy looked like a fool. Mom asked not to pay attention, and was very grateful that he saved her and her daughter. This did not cause any special problems for the hero, it was a mere trifle. Wei was going to take them to a safe place, because he should have left here. The girl could not believe that there was a safe place. There were monsters everywhere, and every corner was infested with these zombies. Coming closer to the girl, the hero told her to be sure that his safe place was large and cozy. Out of anger, the girl bit him. She didn't like that the stranger was touching her. The little girl kept biting the poor guy and he screamed in pain. Some time later, the mother was able to pick up her child and ask for forgiveness, because the girl was too scared, and that's why she behaved like that. At the same time, the girl thought that this guy was too strange. Hearing this, Wei Chen was indignant because he did not consider himself an uncle. He does not look old at all and does not look like an uncle. The woman at the same time wondered whether the place he mentioned was really safe. In this case, they should go there themselves, because right now they are not in the best position. A few minutes later, they arrived in a temporary safe zone. So far almost only his classmates lived here. Zombies shouldn't attack them anytime soon. Supplies of food and water also seemed to be quite sufficient. The hero also introduced Officer Qin Xian to the new arrivals. She is responsible for the security and defense of their safe zone. As it turned out, the woman's name was Zhuang Xiaowan, and her daughter was Zhuang Xiaoling. The officer was not against them living here, and as for the main character, although he seems like an abnormal idiot, at least you can rely on him. Wei Chen invited the newcomers to come with him, because the first thing they need to do is arrange a place to stay for the night so that they can rest properly. The good-natured hero took them to a tent where there was a bed and a table. The mother immediately put her child to bed so that the girl could rest. As soon as Zhuang Xiaoling lay down, she immediately fell asleep, and her mother went somewhere. She came to Wei's room, and he noticed that the woman was also awake. The days they spent outside the safe zone must be simply terrible, and she should rest well, the guy said. The lady was incredibly grateful, because without his help, she and her daughter, perhaps they would have long ago become the same monsters as those who almost killed them. Hearing gratitude, the guy admitted that in fact he was an unimaginable egoist. Although it embarrassed him to say that, he knows that they cannot be and live here just like that. Suddenly, the girl's clothes were already on the floor. What he saw stunned the guy. He didn't even know what to answer. She wasn't going to live here for free, so if he wanted to do something to her, he could do it. However, although she had complete control, she asked not to harm her daughter. Wei Chen hastily began to stop her, because she had misunderstood everything. Life in the safe zone only requires help with housework and stuff like that, and he didn't mean anything like that. Upon learning this, the girl began to cry because she was incredibly ashamed. She should have immediately realized that an old woman like her was not capable of interest him. The guy began to make excuses and said that the girl looked very young and beautiful, also a seductive girl, and did not at all look like an old woman with children. Now, the young lady should take a good rest. Lying on the bed, the girl did not understand whether he really considered her old. However, he was very shy and embarrassed when she took off her outerwear, making him look a bit like her late husband. Meanwhile, the hero was banging his head on the floor. He did not understand why he then refused a blissful night with this unimaginable beauty, and considered himself a stupid person. Some time later, events continued on the second day, namely on an empty sports field. It was necessary to spend 100 points in death to redeem the drawings of the primary bath. And then, you need to confirm production. The construction of the primary bath will consume 100 forest building materials and 100 stone building materials. Thus, the hero was easily able to create the primary bath. The effect of the primary bath is that it can slightly restore players' physical strength. The girls couldn't believe that this building was actually built out of thin air, without any materials, and it looked unscientific. But the hero knew that this was just a game world, and here everything impossible becomes possible. Besides, girls adore cleanliness. Also, he spent a good amount of building materials to build this thing, and he deserved at least some kind of gratitude. In fact, Qin Xian always thought that he was just an ordinary pervert, and even the construction of this bathhouse could be explained by the fact that he just wanted to spy on them. As it turned out, the guy was not interested in spying on how she soaked her body, which looked like a roasted bean. This made the girl incredibly angry, and she put a gun to the scoundrel's head, and he simply meant that today he would eat deep-fried beans for lunch. However, everyone had not taken water procedures for several days, and the hero asked them not to be shy and to use the new building. The angry girl screamed at him not to touch her, and he didn't dare think about her in this sense. And also, he did not dare to think about her mother, because he is not worthy of her, in the girl's opinion. The girl correctly noticed that the guy was not interested in her mommy, but also did not intend to let her go. After all, sooner or later he and her mother will cook the most delicious dish in the whole city. Zhuang Xiaoling was shocked by what the guy said to her, and she almost started crying. After which, she jumped into her mother's arms and shouted that they should leave here. This man was in trouble in his head. Wei Chen was just joking with her a little. She looks like he intended to intimidate her. The mother explained to her daughter that her brother was just teasing her, and soon they were all going to go to the bathhouse together. Some time later, events continued in the bathhouse. The girls happily took water treatments in the brand new bathhouse. They also assessed each other's figures. The ladies were relaxing calmly in the warm springs, when suddenly a hole appeared in the wall. As it turned out, they made her a guy, and they were incredibly happy that they succeeded. Each of them was going to watch the girls take water procedures. They literally started fighting over who would watch first. All of a sudden, Wei Chen suddenly came and said that he didn't remember teaching them such obscene things, and right now he touched this hole, and wished that he had never seen them do something like that. But after a moment, the guy himself began to peek into the hole that the guys created. Qin Xian noticed a shameless man spying on the girls and decided to teach him a lesson. Because of this, the hero began to scream in pain, because he believed that he was blind in one eye. While taking a shower, Wei Chen thought that it was a pity. After all, Qin Xian is just as hot-tempered as in his previous life. And he didn't know what to do if because of this hematoma he went blind in one eye. Suddenly, the system notified that in the near future a new round of an endless challenge will begin for all surviving players. Players will be teleported to a random space in order to complete the quest. Generous rewards will be given for completing quests. If the quest is not completed or the player dies, then the player erased forever. The hero was the last one who had not yet disappeared, and he was about to sneak into the room. And all this in order to take at least something and put it on. But he didn't have time to reach the things, and also teleported. Unfortunately, this game never gave him a minute to prepare, and every time it teleported him at the most inopportune moment without warning. He also found a mother and daughter in the forest. In shock, they continued to watch each other, and did not know what to say. The girl was embarrassed and shouted that he should not dare look at them. and little Zhuang Xiaoling screamed for the pervert to turn away. The guy immediately followed their instructions and told them to wait a little because he was going to find them clothes. The purchase was successful and 30 points were deducted from his account. Luckily for him, he has a system that can solve this little problem. Well, everyone else who was with him in the bath was not lucky at all. Zhuang Xiaoling didn't understand what the hell happened. She and her mother were in the bathhouse, when suddenly they immediately found themselves in this strange, godforsaken place. As they can see for themselves, these are the rules of the game. The game system teleports the players who survived the first test to a random space in order to complete some specific quest. If they ask him the reason, he will answer them with all confidence that he does not know it. Zhuang Xiaowan knew that her daughter and she were ordinary people, and she wanted to know how they could survive in this dangerous world. Wei Chen confidently said that as long as the survivor had enough skills, experience and equipment, in general, any person was capable of becoming stronger, and besides, the hero was personally going to protect them. This flattered the woman, and she was glad that the guy was capable of this. At the same time, the daughter began to stand between them and shouted that her mother should not fall for the tricks of this pervert. It seems like he had the wrong idea about this girl from the very beginning. At the same time, the girl was ready to give her teeth that this guy was a real lustful villain and pervert. They continued to stand in the unknown forest and debate among themselves. Suddenly, someone shot right next to the hero. It was a wooden arrow, which fortunately only got stuck in a tree. The hero ordered the person who fired this shot to come out and fight. But this was not one person, but a whole group of some tribe that hunted specifically people. One of the tribe ordered them to come with them, otherwise they would kill everyone. The arrogant hero did not want to obey commands and wanted to refuse them, because he hated the mountain village savages. He warned them not to even think about attacking these girls. If even one hair fell from their heads, he would kill them all. The girl was amazed by this. She didn't think at all that this guy could be so brave. It turns out that you can rely on him. People from the tribe just started shouting that the man should not come near them, otherwise they would kill him. Suddenly, the hero thought a little and decided that after all he would not interfere with them, and if they wanted to take them, then he would give the girls. What they heard shocked the two frightened girls. The little girl was furious, because the hero had just said that he wanted to protect them with all his might. It seems that the main character still had some kind of plan. Soon, they were all tied up and it seemed like they were in danger. The hero only said that there is no need to worry about this. The game itself cannot afford to lead the player straight down a disastrous path. In any case, they have time, and they just need to find a way to pass this level. The indignant girl added that the guy is generally an ordinary coward. These savages at first glance do not seem to be very good people, but he allowed them to be captured by people, and the fact that they are leading them somewhere does not bode well. Approaching from behind, Wei Chen warned the girl that she should be very careful, because these savages must have never seen such a young, small and beautiful girl, so it is very possible that they will take turns enjoying her body. In fact, the guy just scared her, but Zhuang Xiaowan warned him not to tease her daughter because she would hit him in the stomach again. Some time later, they all arrived at the Worm God village together. One of the natives reported to the head of the village that they had returned and brought people with them. The head was incredibly happy, and she ordered that preparations for the ritual begin quickly, because they must immediately perform the ritual. The polite hero turned to the head of the village, and wanted to be allowed to ask. They were caught and brought here in order to perform some kind of ritual, and he wanted to find out what it was all about. The native said that this is the village of the Worm God. For many generations it was protected by the Worm God, so they annually hold a ritual of sacrifice, during which they give young beauties to the Worm God to show their gratitude to them. There was just a young beauty in the company, and soon, the native ordered the victim to be tied up and tied to the habitat of the Worm God. The savages gradually began to approach so that the girl would obey them, and she did not want to be a victim at all. And she began to call for help from her mother, so that she would come and save her. Meanwhile, the mother was also tied up, and she could not even move. The girl ran to save her mother from the bloodthirsty natives. Unfortunately, on the way to her mother, she accidentally fell because she tripped over a stone. The girl wanted to know why her mother was chosen as a victim, but this was not surprising. Her sister was very attractive and had a beautiful figure. If Wei Chen was the Worm God, he would have chosen her and not some suspicious girl. This made the girl very angry, and she ordered the guy to shut his filthy mouth because he was acting like a dog. But soon, the girl calmed down and wanted to understand what they should do in order to save her mother as soon as possible. They had to act the old-fashioned way, and wait for an opportunity, and then improvise. Meanwhile, the girl was hung from a tree, she was screaming, and thereby trying to call someone for help. The chief native began to perform the ritual. He called upon the great worm god. They offered this humble sacrifice as a sign of their gratitude to him, and hoped that he would continue to protect them. But suddenly, the hero stopped the ritual. The savages were amazed at this, because such a bold fool had dared to interrupt such an important ceremony. If he angered the worm god, he would have to take responsibility. Trying to free the girl, the guy asked if the savages thought that sacrificing living people was very cruel. The natives, in turn, believed that becoming a victim for the worm god was a great honor for everyone. There could be no question of cruelty here. And if it was a great honor, then Mr. Head of the village will be the first to feel this great honor by sacrificing himself. What they saw amazed the savages. They did not know how to react to it. And they were horrified because he simply kicked the village chief. In horror, the elder continued to scream from the hole where the worm god was and begged him for mercy. The same god worm completely swallowed the main savage. Apparently the worm god is very pleased with the sacrifice of the village chief. The savages were not happy about this at all, because he had killed the headman of the village and would now die at their hands. Having released the arrow, the hero immediately decided to react, and this was a call to action. With the help of an arrow, he untied his hands and deftly maneuvered. The guy was happy that one of the natives helped him untie. All the other natives decided to shoot arrows at him all together. At the same time, they were amazed by the fact that the guy was able to freely free himself from the rope. A moment later, one of his fingers began to glow bright blue, and in his hands something gradually began to appear. Soon, Wei Chen held a machete in his hands, and the system congratulated him that he had received 50 death points. The girl asked him to be extremely careful because she was worried about him. With the help of Ning Feng's 13 techniques, the hero was able to perform an attack called Spring Wind Creates Rain, and thereby repulsed absolutely all the arrows. One of the arrows hit directly the rope that Zhuang Xiaowan was hanging on. She began to fall into the pit, and begged for someone to help her. The worried girl watched with regret as her mother fell into the hole. A few seconds later, the bound girl fell straight into the pit of the worm god. The worms gradually began to approach her in order to devour her completely. Without thinking twice, the girl decided to jump to help her mother escape. The guy who didn't expect this was also amazed that the stupid girl did this and things are now bad for them. The little girl was falling and was ready to help her mother. Well, opening her eyes, she discovered that she had jumped, but for some reason had not fallen yet. This is all because the hero was holding her from behind by the t-shirt. She seemed to think that she was filming some kind of martial arts drama. If she fell into this pit, she would die at that moment. Zhuang Xiaoling started crying and couldn't understand why the guy saved her. She couldn't just stand there and watch her mother die. Holding the girl over the abyss, the hero could not believe that such a baby would be so heavy. The girl, indignant to the extreme, began shouting that she was a piece of fluff and he should shut up. Knowing that they were still in danger, the hero shouted at her not to move this way or that way. Her clothes will tear and she will fall into the pit. And so it happened, and the girl felt tied into a hole, and wanted to understand where she ended up. In fear and horror, she wanted to know where her mother and Wei Chen were. Suddenly, the hero said that he was here. This made the girl happy, because she did not expect to see anyone else here. As it turned out, because she did not listen to him and twitched like she was out of her mind, he fell to his death, and died because of her. The frightened girl began to apologize, because she did not want this. The hero had a condition. If she called him Wei Chen's beloved brother, he would close his eyes to the fact that he died through her fault, and would forgive her if she did this. The girl started screaming 3 times that she loved brother Wei Chen. A moment later, her brother had already forgiven her. She shouted these words so sincerely and affectionately that he considered her to be a really good little sister. But at that moment, the girl realized something. With a terrifying scream, she began to scream that in fact he had deceived her. And with all her strength she hit him with her head right in the stomach, and the guy screamed in pain because he experienced incredible pain. Wei was afraid that she was too nervous right now and might want to liven things up somehow. Now was truly not the time to liven up the atmosphere for conversation, because the girl wanted to find her mother. While she was unconscious, the hero had already looked around here, but did not see a single trace of Sister Zhuang. At this news, the girl began to cry in horror, because she believed that the worm had eaten her mother. At the bottom of this pit, he found only the remains of the village chief, and there was no body there and her mother. The guy assumed that his sister was taken by the worm god as food for supply. The system gave the task to destroy the worm god, and the side task was to save Zhuang Xiaowan. Since even the system put forward a task whose main goal was to save her mother, the guy thought that he had no choice but to attach to her all efforts to salvation. At least as long as she was taken into reserve, she should be safe for a while. Knowing this, the girl immediately began to panic. She believed that time was limited, and they needed to run faster and save her mother. The hero only stopped her, since the worm god had recently eaten, he will not crawl out of his hole, so it should be safe here. While he saves her mother, she should stay here. Looking intently at the hero, the girl didn't even know how to thank him. And also, Wei Chen understood that in this way he could be alone with Sister Zhuang Xiaowan. He already imagined how he came to his sister to save her. In his thoughts there was a picture of a girl asking him how she could thank him, and he wanted to give Zhuang Xiaoling a little brother or sister. The girl seemed to be distraught because she always knew that he had dirty plans for her mommy. Due to the fact that the girl is very small, if the hero takes her, she will only get in the way. At the same time, the girl thought that it would be good if she were an adult, then she could also save her mother. Having learned this, the hero asked if she really wanted to become an adult so much, because he could help with this. He offered her a pill that contained golden porridge. If she ate it, she would instantly become an adult. Hesitating, the girl still took the pill, but the hero warned her that, nevertheless, he advises her to think everything through carefully. If she misses puberty, then there is a very high chance that she will turn into a plank, and it will be too late to regret her choice. After listening to the guy, the girl finally decided to take the pill, and in a moment, she had already turned into an adult. Even the girl was amazed that she had actually become an adult. This pill has the right to be called a golden growth porridge, and he did not regret at all that he had spent 100 points on it. She had grown so beautiful, and the hero knew that now was the time to let off steam. Embarrassed, the girl asked not to look at her. Quite a bit closing his eyes, the hero made excuses that he was not looking. Because of embarrassment, the girl hid and asked if the hero had a change of clothes, because she wanted to put at least something on herself. For that matter, he should give her something he doesn't want, but should choose a special costume for her. After she puts on a special costume, she will be able to get the skill tree of the class whose clothes she received. For example, she will be able to get the skill tree in voice, archer, or assassin. And since the guy wanted to help her so much, the girl should have chosen the most suitable clothes for her. The enthusiastic Zhuang Xiaoling asked what other classes there were, and the guy told her that as long as she could imagine a class in her head, there would be no problems. And then she decided that she wanted to become a magical girl. These words caused an ambiguous reaction in the hero, and he began to grin. Soon, he could barely contain his laughter. This made the lady angry because he had just laughed and she had seen it all. He was definitely going to laugh at what she said. Poking his finger at the girl, the hero was amazed at how she could become a magical girl. The girl said that she had always dreamed of becoming a sorceress, which is why he decided to fulfill her request. He found an unusual item in the store, and he took it especially for the girl. If she sings that she wants to turn into a magical girl, then she will succeed. It was a magical girl's heavenly magic wand. After picking up the magic wand, the girl will sing that she wants to turn into a magical girl. She will become a magical girl. This item is only for girls. Suddenly, the guy realized that something was wrong. It turns out that even if a man says the motto, he can also turn into a magical girl. From that moment on, the hero became a magical girl, and also received 70 death points. If the girl had continued to look at him in this outfit, her eyes would have started to bleed out, and she asked him to quickly give him his magic wand, but the hero began to run away, and if she managed to catch up with him, he would give him his magic wand. Without thinking twice, the girl grabbed the stone, and she threw it straight at the treacherous hero. Thus, she was able to get the staff, and said that she wanted to turn into a girl sorceress. During the transformation, the hero thought that during all transformations, those who are transformed should lose their clothes, that is, even during the transformation into a magical girl, her clothes should disappear for some time. But this did not happen, and Zhuang Xiaoling was irradiated into the beautiful clothes of a magical girl. The mocking guy was asking if a girl aged 18 wasn't too old to cosplay as a magical girl. The lady objected, because she was only 6 years old. However, she didn't feel like she had mastered any magic at all. In fact, this is how it should be, she should slowly master magic, learn different spells and everything like that, but at this stage of development she should be able to do at least one simple spell, and she can try it right now. The joyful girl decided to try her first spell, called Stealth. Suddenly, Zhuang Xiaoling disappeared in front of the hero, as if she had run away somewhere. The girl's surprise knew no bounds, she didn't know that this was possible, and the guy really didn't see her. Well, as it turned out, the hero was only lying, and in fact he saw the girl. He was just teasing her to piss her off. And I didn't expect that she could be deceived so easily. Suddenly, the hero heard some sounds. Some unknown beetles began to crawl under their feet. They literally surrounded the couple and approached with incredible speed. It was a disgusting sight for the girl, and she did not understand why so many insects appeared around them in an instant. The guy explained to her that these are moisture-loving insects, they are very sensitive to the odors emanating from the places where they live. Zhuang Xiaoling literally begged the hero to save her because the bugs wanted to stick to her body. And it also seemed to her that these insects wanted to eat her, and she could not believe that she would end her life in this way. The bugs actually started crawling all over her body, and were slowly eating the clothes right on her. Fortunately, the hero had a fountain brand diuretic. It contained a concentrated liquid that can produce immediate intense urination after taking it. With a malicious smile, the hero said to the girl to calm down, because he had found a way to deal with their problem. Immediately after this, he drank the same medicine, and he called on the insects to come so that they could feel his counterattack. Gradually, the hero decided to use the medicine as intended. Meanwhile, the girl closed her eyes because she was ashamed of this appearance. He did all this to take advantage of the effect of the diuretic. Concentrating, he used the water withdrawal, water dragon projectile technique. The insects were happy, and the system awarded the hero 100 death points. The moisture-loving beetles have changed their target. Not a drop was left, the hero pumped absolutely everything out of himself. The guy said that everything was fine with him, but he looked like a mummy. And also, his kidneys just hurt a little. Watching the hero closely, Zhuang Xiaoling decided that they should take advantage of the fact that these disgusting insects were distracted and run away from this place. In any case, these insects will die sooner or later, since the diuretic contains substances that created poison after the liquid was formed. In other words, there was poison in his liquid. Even though they got rid of the annoying insects, it didn't really help them find out Zhuang Xiaowan's whereabouts. At the same time, the hero knew that he just had to use his little search tool. As long as they don't move according to Sister Zhuang's scent, they will be able to find her. All this was possible thanks to a spray called dog scent. After use, it was possible to get a very strong sense of smell for a certain period of time, but if the smell was too strong, you could die. With horror, the girl did not understand where the guy got so many strange devices. He didn't even have a backpack, and it wasn't entirely clear where he kept them. He looked at the girl with a serious look. He only said that men do not give away their secrets. He also added that enough chatter, if she has something that belonged to her mother, then she needs to smell it. The girl only had one thing left that belonged to her mother. The embarrassed lady quickly handed over the item she had left. The guy looked at her with delight, as if he liked it. She actually carried her mother's stockings with her, and the hero clearly had questions. Embarrassed, the girl did not want to admit where she got this stocking from, but she still told me that it was that time when she was just playing, then she just accidentally came across it, and became interested in what it was and put it in her possession. In any case, the hero needed to smell this thing. After putting the stocking directly on his head, Wei Chen felt that it was indeed the scent of Sister Zhuang's mature body. At the same time, the girl mastered another skill, and could summon a magical ball of light. I also discovered that each skill has its own instructions. Meanwhile, the hero was diligently trying to sniff out Zhuang Xiaowan. This means that now the girl could quickly learn some useful magic spells that could be useful to her in the future. The lady suggested that if he was able to obtain miraculous devices, then he could somehow get food, because she was hungry. The hero happily admitted that he can get anything he wants, including food, but he won't do it. If the girl didn't notice, then they are in the game, and he wants to survive in it, so his attempts to get he will spend the device only if his survival or the survival of people dear to him is in question. In horror, the girl discovered that there was someone behind him. It was a huge number of bats whose eyes glowed red. The red-eyed bat was annoyed because of the ball of light, and she had to hide it, and the hero, in turn, wanted to deal with these guys. The brave guy began to make his way forward, and with sweeping blows he destroyed many bats. One by one the bat fell in an unequal battle. At the same time, the hero understood that the number of these red-eyed bats was too large. He had to come up with another way other than cutting them one by one. Fortunately, the girl could use a magic flame that would destroy absolutely all the red-eyed bats. A huge cloud of fire flew right over the guy, but he forgot that these red-eyed bats are afraid of flames most of all in their lives. The girl sighed with relief, and they were ready to move on. The hero could not believe what he saw. He began to look at the sorceress girl with completely different eyes. Unfortunately, the hero was missing half the hair on his head due to the use of the sorceress's magical abilities. She also knew better than to tell him that she accidentally burned some of his hair. Although these bats are very tough, but after she burned them, they gave off a very pleasant smell, and she was directly tempted to eat them, and it also became difficult to restrain herself. The experienced hero immediately stopped her, because you can't eat them. Red-eyed bats have a lot of germs. Only those who are mentally retarded or those with serious head problems will want to eat a bat. After thinking a little, the hero decided to tell him that he had found safe, tasty and nutritious food. This caterpillar tasted like chicken, and it was also very crispy. You can eat it, you just need to bite off the head and spit it out. The upset and crying girl began to shout that even if she was dying of hunger, she was not going to eat this disgusting thing. Then the hero decided that he alone could enjoy this unsurpassed delicacy. The girl began to drool from hunger. She loved the look of fried caterpillars on a stick, and her stomach began to grow very loudly because she wanted to eat. The hero decided to take pity on the girl, and decided that if she called him her beloved older brother Wei Chen, then he won't mind giving her some food. Out of despair, the girl still called Wei Chen her beloved older brother. With caution, the girl began to try the caterpillars, which were baked over the fire. Her surprise knew no bounds when she began to chew them, and felt that it was indeed very tasty. As it turned out, these were the larvae of the bone-piercing flying insects. These larvae are so thick and nutritious because the bone-piercing flying insects collect the flesh and blood of their prey and deliver them straight to their larvae. The joyful girl immediately realized that if there were so many larvae of these dangerous insects here, it meant that they are already very close and are flying right here. Those same bone-piercing insects looked very angry, and all because the guys decided to eat their larvae. Wei Chen began to run at incredible speed, taking Zhuang Xiaoling with him, since none of his weapons and her magical flames were capable of causing any damage to them. With every second the insects were getting closer, but suddenly, the girl did not notice the stone under her feet, and fell to the floor. She screamed for the hero to run away and forget about her, to leave her, because he must run away and be sure to save her mother. The guy continued to run and shouted so that the girl was sure that he would not let her down and would save her mother. Zhuang Xiaoling was determined to really die, but not to let the insects go after Wei Chen. Surprisingly, the insect flew over the girl, and all because the hero began to call flying insects so that they would look at him. His flesh was fragrant and beautiful, he was smeared with something, and they wanted to eat him. With surprise and admiration, the girl continued to look at Wei, and wanted to understand what the hell this guy was doing. It turned out that he had accumulated so many points that he purchased gold insecticide. It was a liquid with strong insecticidal effects, and was usually applied to bait. These points should also be enough for rebirth. Many insects were defeated when they began to bite the guy. At the same time, only bones, hair and clothes remained from the hero himself. With the understanding that her partner was no longer there, Zhuang Xiaoling began to run to his bones that were left of him. The girl cried with all her might, because she believed that he sacrificed himself for her sake, in order to save her, and she treated him badly until the very end, and insulted him in every possible way, and did not have time to tell him much. The revival system started, and 300 death points were used to resurrect the owner, and the guy extended his hand, patting the girl on the head. He said that it was no big deal. He is not against her being gentle and affectionate with him in the future. Watching the guy come to life again, Lady couldn't believe that he wasn't dead. Having figured out what to answer her, he said that good people do not live long, but villains live for several thousand years, and he is still a scoundrel, so it is not so easy to kill him. In the grip of boundless joy, she shouted that this was excellent. And she threw herself into his arms because she was glad that he didn't die. But everything was quite simple. If an ordinary person dies, then he will die, but if the main character dies, then he will not actually die. Suddenly, the guy shouted loudly and notified the sand sculpture system that the young master had been reborn, so he was entitled to a reward. The system generated a reward and the owner had to accept it. He deserved to be the main hero, so he needed some unimaginably excellent reward. A huge sword literally began to fly from the sky. When he saw this, he couldn't believe his eyes because the system had misunderstood him. He fell to the ground, the sword almost finished off the main character again. The hero was furious because he was joking, and his nuts almost came to an end. You can't be so cruel. This sword was called the Great Killer. It can absorb the spirit of the killed person who was beheaded by this sword. His spirit will disappear from the past, present, and will not be in the afterlife. He will be imprisoned in this sword. If he successfully beheads the enemy, there is a chance of copying his ability and skill. This kind of reward made the guy very happy, because now the rewards began to look more like the rewards of the death system. Suddenly, something began to appear above. As it turned out, it was a gigantic creature, and probably the boss of the location. He was called the King of Flying Insects, the king of a swarm of flying insects. He will fatally attack all opponents who in any way harmed the members of his swarm. One should beware of his claws, the sharpness of which is comparable to a sickle. It was time to test his great killer, and the hero drew his blade. At the same time, with horror, he discovered that he could not pull it out of its sheath. Outraged to the limit, the lady began to shout that he should try as hard as he could and use any methods, but he must get him out. Nothing could be done, because he was sitting too tightly in the sheath. The guy was afraid that if he pulled it too hard, who knows, he might break it. Fortunately, after several attempts, he finally succeeded. The giant boss was gradually getting closer. The brave hero was at the same time ready to fight him. With the help of a deft leap, he easily escaped the sharp claws. The guy called the new trick a raven that flies on an airplane, and he began to climb right onto the huge insect. Turning to the large and ugly insect, he told it to prepare for death. With all his strength, he plunged his brand new sword straight into his body. Since the insect had made their lives so difficult, it should have allowed them to play with it a little, in which case the hero was ready to ask it. The joyful guy shouted that if Shuang Shaoling wants to join him, then go ahead. Riding this thing is like riding a roller coaster, only this thing gives a more intense feeling. The girl had absolutely no time for this, and she asked him to stop fooling around, and better finish this thing as soon as possible and try not to die from clumsiness. The guy's confidence knew no bounds. He asked the girl to think that the dragonfly was already dead. But suddenly, the dragonfly moved and the hero hit a stone. With regret, at the moment of the fall, he realized that she was still moving, and apparently he had not killed her yet. The boss was indeed still alive and ready to fight. Something terrible appeared in the hero's eyes. Because he understood that being in the air he had no way to dodge his attacks. Suddenly, the sorceress girl used her magic flame ability. And this was very opportune. Wei Chen thanked the girl for her excellent job, and when they save her mother, he will reward her with a lollipop. Also an instant, the hero took out the larvae, which they fried over the fire, and he began to eat, asking the big and ugly insect if these were her children, because they tasted very good. The giant insect noticed this immediately. With lightning speed after this, he began to attack the hero who was teasing him. The new sword was extremely strong and could hold off the attack of a strong boss. The insidious hero had more than one weapon with him, and took out a knife from his back pocket. With a deft movement of his hand, he attacked with his other hand. Finally, he came in handy with the knife that Brother Zombie the Butcher gave him. The unexpected blow caused a gigantic explosion, and the bosses and the hero were thrown in different directions. This blow could not destroy the boss. The hero broke off one of his claws. After a moment, he decided to use it right now, and delivered a crushing attack directly to the insect. After which, he jumped several meters up and launched an attack using his new sword. Thanks to killing such a strong boss, the guy was given 3,000 experience points and reached level 7. The boss's soul began to decompose, and gradually fell directly into the blade. Soon, the soul was successfully absorbed into the great sword. The owner gained the flying blade skill, which was the ability to swing the sword so as to perform long-range attacks. Swinging his sword once, he could launch an attack several meters forward. This sword was indeed called a worthy A-rank sword, and it truly had killing abilities. All this time the girl watched him, and thought that he always did such dangerous and reckless things that she expected that this time he would die again. But this was not so, and the joyful guy thanked the girl for saving him and wanted to hug with her. The squeamish lady did not want this, because his whole body was stained with some kind of sticky rubbish. She already had no desire to hug him, and now even more so, he should wash himself. But it didn't matter, the internal fluids of insects pose no harm to the human body, only they destroyed the clothes themselves. To prevent the hero from pestering him anymore, Zhuang Xiaoling hit him with her staff straight in the face with all her might. At the same time, in one of the caves there was a lump of cobwebs, and someone was tied up in a web, and was near the spider eggs. When she woke up, Zhuang Xiaowan could not understand where she was. She immediately believed that she had died. Together, where she found herself were the skeletons of some creatures, and she also got entangled in some kind of sticky rubbish. She couldn't believe that she had been brought here to serve as food for the larvae when they reached maturity. That was not all, and something terrible appeared before her eyes. A giant spider that was moving closer and closer to the girl. There was not only one spider there, a huge number of spiders began to hatch from eggs. They all started climbing on the girl, and she literally begged them not to do it. She screamed for help with all her might because she was trying to call someone. Suddenly, a tin can began to fly at the spider. It was Wei Chen, who said in his wook that if he fed this beauty to him, it would be a great waste. The brave guy arrived, apologized to his sister for being a little late. He was here to save her. The spider, unfortunately, did not think so, and he began to attack the guy. The crying girl tried to warn him that a spider was approaching him. With a deft movement, the hero was able to avoid the first attack of the spider. The giant insect had very strong attacks that were also incredibly fast. It was even difficult for a hero with level 7 skills to evade them. After some time, the hero was still able to approach Zhuang Xiaowan. And he did this because now he was going to free her and save her. The insect did not even think about giving up, and again began to attack the savior. With a sharp movement of his hand, the hero scared the huge spider. And thus, out of fear, he became entangled in his own web. Wei Chen actually warned him not to use so much of his web, and he ended up overusing it. Meanwhile, when the spider became entangled, the hero had the opportunity to free the girl. After numerous attempts, he was still unable to untie this web. He decided to use the sword, ordering the girl to close her eyes. He began to act. With a cutting blow, he used an attack called Spring Wind Gives Birth to Spring Rain. The first attack was followed by many other attacks that were supposed to help the girl free herself. And you were also able to be damaged by the spiders that were nearby. After a moment, Wei Chen happily decided to tell the girl that he had freed her. The shy lady at the same time asked her not to look at her while she was like that. Even the spider felt a little awkward, but he watched with curiosity. Soon the guy realized what was going on. This spider saw how they killed his cubs, so he could well mutate. A little worried, Wei ordered Zhuang Xiaoling to kill the spider because it was her exit now. The girl arrived just in time, and she was behind the spider, about to attack it. With the help of magic, she summoned the magic flame, but it took quite a long time. Soon, the spell was ready, and the girl happily used it. She released a magical fireball and watched as the giant spider was defeated. At the same time, Lady discovered that the web around her was also beginning to burn. A moment later, she was already falling down towards the giant flame that she herself had created. The brave man began to act and shouted that the girl should not be afraid, because he would catch her. Like Spider-Man, he began to fly closer to the girl to grab her. Fortunately, the hero managed to save the girl and her mother, and they were reunited. The observant lady also noticed that the large spider was about to escape. I watched the girl closely. The hero noticed that there is no need to worry about this. He suffered a lot in this battle, so he can't fight at the moment. Suddenly, out of powerlessness, the hero fell straight onto the girl. Although he behaved too frivolously all the time, he never rested during the entire journey here, which is why it is not surprising that he suddenly fell asleep. Zhuang Xiaowan knew that the two of them would definitely come to save her, and once again she was convinced that this young man could be relied on. Xiaoling didn't want to admit it, and believed that he couldn't be relied on at all he did all the time was mock her. However, something still worried the mother. She had no thoughts at all about how she could suddenly grow up, and did not even ask her mother for permission. Meanwhile, the insect with the girl's body began to crawl out of the cave. The natives immediately discovered the same insect god who lived in the caves. In fact, they were happy that the insect god decided to show himself. The insect god, meanwhile, was not so friendly, and destroyed several savages in a second. She literally sucked all the life energy out of them. She also wanted to restore her strength. She needed to accumulate a lot of energy to tear that damned man into pieces. Meanwhile, the hero was in some water. Suddenly he found that he had no air at all and was in danger of suffocating. Fortunately, he discovered that he was only sleeping. Having woken up, the system congratulated him and awarded him an additional 50 death points. In the dream, he really felt like he almost died because of something, but fortunately the girls saved him by waking him up. The slightly alarmed ladies discovered that they had distracted the hero from his wonderful dream. Confused, the guy admitted that he accidentally fell asleep and it was time for them to leave this place. Zhuang Xiaowan could not understand how this was possible, because the hole was very high. As a solution to the problem, the hero showed the reward he received after completing the rescue task. If they don't use this item, they will be able to get out of here without any problems. This item was called a fire stone. After use, it was possible to instantly move a living body to a nearby coordinate point, and the recovery time was 24 hours. The girls put their hands on the hero's shoulders, and they all got ready to leave together. Teleportation has been successfully started. Just a few seconds later the teleportation was successful. A rather unusual sight appeared before the hero's eyes, because none of them understood where they had moved, because it seemed like they had returned to the aboriginal village. It was incredibly unusual for Zhuang Xiaoling to be in an adult body. She still needed to get used to many things. The observant guy also noticed that the residents of this settlement were supposed to guard the entrance to the cave of the insect god, but disappeared somewhere. Seeing something, the mother immediately pointed her finger there for the kids to look at. In the distance, smoke could be seen from an aboriginal village. Something bad had obviously happened. Coming closer, the hero discovered that many residents were unconscious. They did not understand at all what happened to the inhabitants of this village. After examining one of the residents, the hero wanted to understand what happened here. Observing the structure of the skin, he came to a disappointing conclusion. Their bodies were dried out because absolutely all the blood was sucked out of them. Suddenly, as if from nowhere, an unknown violet ray began to fly. It hit the hero directly, and he had absolutely no idea what it was. Just in case, the guy still decided to fight him off with his brand new sword. That same beam began to shine in a completely different direction. As it turned out, the source of the violet ray was a huge spider. She did not expect that the prey would come to her, because she herself was already preparing to go into the cave. The divine spider was amazed that people wanted to die so badly at her hands, and she was going to do it for them. The guy, who didn't understand anything, wanted to find out who this girl was. The indignant spider exclaimed that she was the queen spider. The cave of the insect god belongs to her, she is its owner, and he killed her entire generation, and also appropriated the cave for himself. Zhuang Xiaoling could not believe what she heard, because she herself had personally burned the spider alive, and it was not entirely clear why she did not die and remained in such good condition, as if brand new. All this happened because of the liquid of the inhabitants. She was able to recover and mutate. Now her body has become like a human one. She was indeed very grateful to them, because their liquid gave her strength that was at least 10 times more powerful than before. The brave hero immediately decided to act and decided to attack the impudent spider. The queen was amazed that he actually decided to attack her on the sly. Actually, he didn't attack her on the sly, which means that she, the villainess, needs to talk less and talk less. A series of attacks again followed on the spider, and she began to dodge. The spider thought that the hero was too naive. Despite the fact that due to the mutation her body became more human-like, she has extremely powerful regeneration abilities. In other words, no matter how much he chops, it won't harm her at all. Because he killed her generation and took over her cave, she wanted to show him all her power and used the 1000-web technique. The warning guy immediately ordered the girls to get out of here quickly. A huge number of purple webs began to surround the hero. Fortunately, the girls were not affected by this, and they managed to escape from the spider's attack. Wei Chen was under a huge dome made of spider webs. In the very dome that had just been created, the ensuing fight took place. He didn't expect her power to become so powerful. Continuing to fight, the hero wanted to know how much liquid she got from those villagers. The spider only replied that cows eat grass, people eat cows, demons eat people. This was planned by God himself, by heaven itself. The enraged Spider Queen began her attack again. To Wei Chen, her attacks were just child's play. If she can heal 100 times, then he will cut her 100 times, in other words, he will destroy her until she reaches her limit, and hope that she is happy, because he is ready to spend a lot of his time on her, and they will do this all day. Suddenly, after a moment, the hero became very hot, he felt some kind of powerlessness and felt stuffy. This is because the entire area around is filled with steam that comes from the barrier's web, it corrodes even bones, and she allowed him to defeat her in order to lure him into this steam cloud. Even great warriors are not able to resist her steam, so she wanted to enjoy the guy properly. Using her web, she began to tie his hands first. She also tied her legs, spreading them. She was going to humiliate him completely. Thirsty for revenge, the spider wanted him to pay for killing her children. At the same time, the hero understood that, fortunately, before he dies, the death point on his account should be enough for him to be resurrected several times. But after a while, he literally begged to be killed. He cannot bear such humiliation, hanging on this web. His scream could be heard even beyond the web ball. Zhuang Shaoling understood that they could not leave Brother Wei Chen in that place, that spider had become very strong, so he would not be able to stand against her for a long time, and they needed to save him. The exhausted mother only asked her girl not to be so impulsive, but my sister wanted to understand what to do in this case. After a few seconds, the girl finally had an idea. She remembered that all spiders should be afraid of fire. Using the magic staff, she used the magic flame skill. With multiple blows, she hit the web dome directly. As soon as the fog after the fire cleared, the dome was completely undamaged. The magical girl could not understand how this was possible. The magic flames actually did not work, it did not harm this web barrier in any way. In horror, she tried to understand what they should do. Her brother was fighting the spider alone right now, and they could not help him. Caring Zhuang Shaowan began to calm her daughter down, because she believed that Brother Wei Chen was so strong that nothing would happen to him. At the same moment, a bright flash followed, and the dome began to separate. A satisfied spider crawled out of it. The girls wanted to know what the spider did to Wei Chen. Extending her hand, she pointed to the exhausted hero, who was unconscious. The ladies were amazed by his appearance, and he showed absolutely no signs that he was alive. The spider had played enough with him and said that now the girls could take what was left of him. Brother Wei Chen now looked more like a mummy, and lay lifeless on the ground. Soon, his body gradually began to disintegrate into small pieces. With every second it disappeared more and more, as if it was being dispersed. Smiling, the spider asked them not to worry, because she was happily going to continue his mouth. But here's the thing about the two of them. They must be good girls, because the spider wanted to eat them. The mother immediately quit in order to save her daughter from the attack. The surprise attack came straight towards Zhuang Shaowan. The woman was wrapped in a purple web and could not move at all. The daughter begged them to eat her better and to spare her mother. The Spider Queen didn't like it that her daughter had such deep love for her mommy. The giant girl didn't have to worry because she was going to eat them both and they would become the first nutrients for her unborn baby. Behind the mountain of ash that was left of Wei Chen, something began to happen. Swiftly, a huge mountain began to head into the sky. As it turned out, the revival system was launched, and I would spend 400 death points to resurrect the owner. The brave man also received a reward for revival, called a diamond body of pure energy. The pure energy diamond body had an effect that, after use, could significantly increase the wearer's defense, resist all negative effects, but reduce attack power and agility, merging breathing training to cultivate endurance and ability training abilities create a forgotten technique that the hero is currently using. The satisfied hero began to call for old and rotten yogurt, because he was her opponent, and wanted to continue their great duel here. What she heard angered the Spider Queen even more because she believed that Wei Chen was just pretending to lose his life. The spider's first attack did not cause any damage at all, and it seemed that this was all she was capable of. Her attacks right now are nothing compared to how she tormented and tortured him before. After several attacks, the Spider Queen was still able to bind the hero into her web. She grabbed the web with a strong grip and began to drag the guy straight towards her. She wanted to let him experience heavenly bliss, and then turn into a dry residue. This made the hero laugh, because if she doesn't succeed, then she should regret her decision. With new strength, the spider continued to create her powerful dome. The spider was very interested in how long he could hold out compared to the previous time. An hour later, the competition continued, and the spider could not believe that this was possible, and literally begged him to stop. She couldn't take it anymore and began to break out of the dome. I had difficulty getting out of the self-created dome. She screamed that she couldn't do it anymore. The hero didn't even think about stopping, and grabbed her paw, after which he began to drag her towards him. The Spider Queen didn't want any more spiders, but Wei Chen didn't want to listen to it, and was going to do something terrible to her. After a few more hours, a strange glow appeared above the dome. It pierced the dome right in the middle. Tearing the fibers of the web, it broke through in order to free Wei. At the same moment, the hero himself came out. He thought he was incredibly cool because he made the spider fail the challenges several times. The excited girls were also happy to discover that the web no longer affected them and they were freed. The ladies wanted to find out what happened to the spider, but the hero did not dare to tell, only adding that he still killed her. With joy, Wei began to hug the two girls, because he was incredibly happy. After all, now they can safely return home. One of the spiders seemed to splash something out of its body. It looked like some kind of poison dart. That same dart hit Zhuang Xiaowan directly in the back. A slight pain begged her, but she did not understand at all what had happened here. Soon, they all began to teleport. All together they found themselves on a street platform. The system congratulated all players for successfully surviving the game mission. Each player receives 3,000 experience points, and the next game mission will be available in 7 days. Players were delighted to discover that they had leveled up. Qin Xian wanted to understand why they all returned at the same time. The hero explained to her that no matter how much time they spent completing the game task, for the real world it is only a moment, which is why they all returned at the same time. One of the survivors discovered that Brother Wei Chen had brought a new girl with him. She was like a goddess who had descended from heaven. That same survivor fell in love with her appearance because she was so beautiful that it melted the ice in his heart. Hearing this, Zhuang Xiaoling immediately began to hiccup. The sorceress girl had a lot of fans who wanted to know if she was from their school and if she was single. In fear, the girl began to run away and hid behind her mother, and the woman explained to her that she shouldn't be so afraid, and that they weren't showing any aggression towards her at all. She also didn't want to go into detail about why her daughter was in this state. But this girl is the daughter of Zhuang Xiaowan's sister, Zhuang Xiaoling. No one could understand what this lustful beast did to her. The guys were shocked and they found out that this was the same terribly unpleasant little girl. Meanwhile, Wei Chen had brought a huge amount of beer and was planning to have a party tonight. Some time later, events continued to take place at the stadium. All the survivors raised their glasses and were about to drink the contents of their glasses to the bottom. They also played dice. The girl thought that there would be 6 sixes, and the hero decided to follow her example and also bet on 6 sixes. The girl was the first to open the cubes. She only had 5 sixes out of 6, and she wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have a single 6. The guy seemed to deliberately create a huge pillar of cubes, and it turned out that he lost. At the top of all the cubes there was one single unit. Looking angrily at the guy, the girl knew that he simply broke the rules, but rules there are rules. If you don't undertake to follow them, then why play at all? As punishment, the hero had to draw a picture on the lady's body. Grinning, he knew that he was now worthy of the title of Best Artist, because he had created a real masterpiece. Shocked, Qin Xian looked in surprise that the hero had drawn her something similar to a pattern. At the same time, Zhuang Xiaoling drank cooling milk. And the guys watched the girl with joy, and wondered if they should come up and talk to her. The caring teacher didn't give them that opportunity because she thought they were lustful assholes and they should keep their dirty thoughts away from this innocent girl. All the villains immediately bowed down to the teacher and apologized to her. Suddenly, Zhuang Xiaowan came up behind her and thanked the woman for taking care of Zhuang Xiaoling and suggested having a drink together. Ouyang she didn't really want this because she doesn't know how to drink well. At the same time, the experienced woman was going to teach her sister how to drink wine correctly. The puzzled and embarrassed teacher agreed. 3 hours later, Wei Chen dragged Qin Xian to bed because she was very drunk and could no longer stand on her own. With pleasure, the girl lay down on the bed. And lying down she still told the hero that she was not drunk at all. The hero decided that it would be a good idea to film all this, in what state she is now, and show her tomorrow, it should be funny, and the girl will be embarrassed. Suddenly, someone grabbed the hero's hand. This was the same girl who invited him to play a very interesting game called Searching a Criminal by a police officer. The guy began to make excuses because he could not do something like that, while the girl is in a state of passion. If he does this, he will not deny that he is an animal. Meanwhile, the girl had already handcuffed him. He wanted to ask what kind of game this was. It turned out that the girl completely changed the concept of the game to torture. Events continued to happen the next day, with all the survivors having incredibly bad headaches. Several of the survivors noticed that Brother Wei Chen's face looked as if yesterday's battle was very intense. The hero tried to be as serious as possible, and asked them not to talk nonsense. He called them all here, because a new game task was starting soon, and everyone, without exception, needed to leave the safe zone for practical training. The girls immediately thought that it was dangerous to leave the safe zone, and they were afraid to go there. Smiling, the guy said that the enemies would not spare them because they were girls. And he insisted that, without exception, if they could not cope with the ordinary dead outside, they would definitely not survive the next game task. Now they should take good supplies with them, and gather in groups of 4 to begin training. Zhuang Xiaowan decided to warn Wei Chen that when it comes to fighting or something like that, she is still not very good at it, and will drag everyone down like a stone around her neck. As a rule, high-level gaming tasks are carried out by groups of fighters, that is, teams, so fighting alone in such tasks will be ineffective, which is why it is important to train as many people as possible. But if a girl is so bad in close combat, then there is no need to worry. After all, the hero has a suit suitable for his sister. As she could see, her daughter got a new suit and along with it, in combat abilities, thanks to which she greatly helped in the rescue. Zhuang Xiaowan now has the opportunity to get exactly the same one. The surviving guys immediately noticed how good the lady was in the costume. She took possession of a nurse's costume. It had the effect that the wearer could master the specialty of medical surgery, pharmacology, auxiliary skills, and the basics of artificial respiration. Thus, now the hero has a teacher, a policewoman, a nurse and a magical girl, all of them gathered together. The girls, meanwhile, were outraged to the limit, because the hero was fantasizing about something strange, and only such thoughts arose in his head. Some time later, events continued to occur outside the safe zone. Qin Xian bravely shot down the zombies with her sniper weapon. Suddenly, a zombie appeared behind her and rushed to attack the girl. Feeling this, she realized that she was in a hopeless situation. The zombie immediately rushed to run after her and managed to grab the girl's hand. Fortunately, Teacher Ouyang Shi came to her aid and easily destroyed the impudent zombie. And the caring Zhuang Xiaowan was able to cure the poor girl. Watching this, the hero admired. Although right now they were a little weak, they were doing well as a team. Even without his help, they should definitely be able to handle some dangers on their own. Suddenly, another monster appeared on the horizon. It was an elite monster that walked on 4 limbs. The appearance of such zombies was transformed by people who did not want to stay in the safe zone and insisted on a nomadic lifestyle. These zombies are characterized by fast speed in all aspects. One of the girls immediately exclaimed that Qin Xian would attack first. Using a sniper rifle, she aimed directly at the zombie's head. From such a short distance, it should definitely hit the target. It wasn't that simple, and the zombie's head began to move on its own. This zombie's body structure is designed in such a way that it can easily dodge her bullets. At the same time, Ouyang Shi decided not to stand on ceremony with the impudent zombie, and hit him with all her might. The blow was made with such force that the zombie destroyed the wall. Qin Xian was incredibly grateful to the teacher, because she became even more experienced in confronting zombies in close combat. The girl said that if this was possible, she would not want to turn on the half-zombie mode, and was glad that this time she did not have to resort to it. The zombie was not so simple, and his long neck along with his head emerged from the fog. What they saw amazed the lady. They had never seen something like this. All the girls stood rooted to the spot, and did not know what to do. Suddenly, the terrible zombie split into 2 parts. This was facilitated by Wei Chen's sword, which was easily able to divide the zombies into 2 halves. He came to the rescue to save the girls from such a strong enemy. Fortunately for them, Wei Chen showed up in time and was able to save Sister Zhuang Xiaowan. If not for him, everything would have ended badly. The hero wanted to give me some advice. If they are on a team, then it is very important to protect the weak in the team. Sister Zhuang Xiaowan is not a fighting type at all, and the guy didn't understand how they could let the enemy get so close to her. From the very beginning, the girl was a nurse, but she believed that she had done nothing of the kind. The nurse is something like a supporting member of the team. Sister Zhuang Xiaowan has a healing ability. This ability makes her a supporting character. Due to the fact that the girls did not pass the tests, the hero put a seal on them that they were not qualified, and it did not rub off at all. He had a whole bunch of seals, and the one he put on her beautiful forehead. It is not the only stamp on her body. According to canon, elite team members receive elite equipment, so Master Ouyang Shi is given weapons. Called Flame Claw Blade, when attacked, there is a chance to increase the damage of a fire attack. Ouyang Shi began to feel differently, as if she was no longer a teacher at the university, and took a different crooked path. Suddenly, someone shouted that the guys got some pretty cool equipment. The guy immediately turned around to see who said it. The one who said this also noted that, nevertheless, giving out such good things to ordinary beginners is the biggest waste. Wei Chen felt something was wrong, and he got the impression that these guys were members of the Light of Fate organization. In his past life, this organization consisted of only bastards who lived by their own rules. Qin Xian was immediately indignant. She did not understand who they were and why they should give them their prey. They are members of the Light of Fate safe zone, and as the name suggests, they are the light that will help them free themselves from the end of the world, and since they have already saved countless objects, then everyone should support them unconditionally. To the hero, the name of their team sounded like scavengers, and he did not want to cooperate with them. One of the girls shouted that she thought she would let them all live if they would just give up their equipment, but since they don't value being treated kindly, they shouldn't be blamed for mistreatment. The next task is about to begin. The participants will be divided into 2 teams of 4, when one team is completely destroyed, the other team will win. The mission area is within 5 kilometers of the current location of the participants. If anyone goes outside, they will die immediately. All participants will be randomly distributed to random coordinates in the mission areas. Everyone was shocked that this task would start right now. Apparently it's time to test what they've learned. The survivors gradually began to teleport somewhere. Alarmed, Zhuang Xiaowan thought that she seemed to have ended up in some library and teleported alone. Suddenly, another survivor appeared, who immediately realized that he had encountered a weak opponent. He approached the girl from behind and presented his unusual weapon to her throat. The guy right there exclaimed that he had not encountered such sweet prey for a long time. Ouyang Shi also teleported and was surprised at who her opponent was. The girl in the tiger costume was also amazed that her opponent was a woman. The 2 of them stood on the roof of one of the high-rise buildings. The mutant girl wanted to fight with the guy who had the sword, but apparently, it went to someone else. This means that she will first have to tear the girl into pieces. Not knowing who the girl attacked, she immediately rushed at the teacher. At the same time, the teacher was thinking that it turns out that this girl is also good at fighting, and that's great, otherwise this battle would be too boring. From the crushing battle on the roof, bright lights were visible everywhere. Ouyang Shi sincerely believed that her rival should regret becoming her enemy. Meanwhile, Qin Xian teleported along with Wei Chen. The girl fell right on top of the hero. Who would have thought that they would be teleported straight into the air? It's good that she landed on him, otherwise she would have died. If not for his thick blood, then both of them would have been flattened into a cake. The guy sighed heavily and also added that the girl still needs to lose weight. The lady clearly did not like these words, and she became very angry. After which, she took the hero to a painful hold, because she believed that she had normal weight. Suddenly, another rival appeared and noted that the 2 of them were on good terms. Qin Xian denied it because she couldn't be on good terms with such an idiot. A moment later, the hero seemed to evaporate. He told the new girl that Qin Xian was right and they were not in any relationship. He was more attracted to Big Sister than that girl. The lady was very outraged by this, because in such an environment no one would flirt with the girl except him. Everything was not so simple, and the hero had a plan. Summoning his sword, he shouted that they were now opponents. The enemy only smiled, and the hero could not hit her with his sword. And after that, I couldn't move at all. In this case, if the guy could not deal with this girl, it is worth giving this opportunity to Qin Xian. The alarmed guy immediately began to defend the enemy and ordered the girl not to shoot. Outraged, Qin Xian shouted that if he couldn't finish her off, then he shouldn't get in the way. But he was not a hero, because he could not control his body at all. In the last task, the girl received the ability to charm the eyes. A person who looks into her eyes while the ability is active will fall under her control. Immediately after this, she ordered her servant to go and punish the girl who came with him. Qin Xian was stunned by what she saw. She never expected that Wei Chen really wanted to attack her. The hero only ordered her to run. He could not control his body, but was still conscious. Unfortunately, the girl did not notice the stone that was under her. At that moment she realized that this could be the end for her. A few seconds later there was a huge explosion. Pityingly, the girl asked if Wei Chen really wanted to destroy her. Suddenly, someone stopped the guy. It was himself. With all his strength with his second hand he tried to stop his hand that controlled the sword. All this time, the impudent girl was watching him. What she liked most was the expression on his face when he resisted her charms and did not want to kill his partner. The guy leaned so hard that he was able to direct the sword, and thereby wounded himself. Because of what happened, the girl began to cry. She felt sorry for her lover. The charming girl should not have underestimated the strength of the protagonist. The lady immediately ran to her partner to support him and help him. As long as the girl's eyes were open and looking at him, she could continue to control him. At best he would last a few more minutes until he completely lost his mind. He immediately knew that since she was controlling him with her eyes through his eyes, then he needed to do something different. The enemy immediately guessed what he wanted to do. Wei Chen began to destroy his eyes so as not to see the girl who fascinated him. Because of this, the opponent considered him a scumbag, because all she wanted was for him to be her dog and submit to the charms of her beauty, and her eye charm technique would never fail. Well, now her charms are useless against the hero. Having lost his eyes, he will no longer be susceptible to her hypnosis abilities, and this is her weak point. Unfortunately, the guy also lost the ability to see the enemy, and was pointing in the completely wrong direction. The stunned opponent immediately realized that the hero was crazy. No normal person in his right mind would tear out his eyes, and she needed to leave. As it turned out, by saying these words, the girl exposed her location. The crushing blow of the protagonist overtook the enemy, and thereby destroyed her. Having fallen to the ground, the enemy clearly did not expect that she would be destroyed at the hands of a man. At the same time, the hero would never have thought that he could tear out his own eyes. But he had no choice, and in order to save Qin Xian's life, losing her eyes was the smallest price to pay. With all her might, the girl tried to convince Wei Chen that she would definitely take care of him in the future. The joyful hero exclaimed that she should not worry about his condition, because if after each task the player returns alive, his physical injuries are healed to a better condition. Hearing this, the lady immediately began to push him away, and the guy wanted to feel the warmth of her body again and return to the embrace. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a bullet began to fly. She hit the main character directly, and he gradually began to fall. Horrified, Qin Xian exclaimed Wei Chen's name, hoping that he was still alive. An insidious sniper from the enemy team was easily able to destroy the main character with his shot. It was a homing bullet, a bullet with a homing function. The further the target is from the shooter, the longer it will take to prepare the shot. At this range, preparing a homing bullet only takes about 30 seconds, and now the bad guy was going to shoot this cutie. Meanwhile, the hero gradually began to disappear, and Qin Xian felt like she was having déjà vu. According to the trajectory of Wei Chen's shot, the sniper should be somewhere nearby. At the same moment, the sniper was already shooting at the girl. She immediately realized that she needed to hide in a safe place, and she sighed with relief when she heard that the bullet didn't hit her. This was not the case, and the bullet continued to fly to hit its target. With every microsecond the field was getting closer, and would soon catch up with the girl. As it approached, there was a huge explosion, and it was unknown whether Qin Xian was alive. Fortunately, the revival system worked. 500 revival points were used, and the owner was resurrected. Every time he is born, the cost of revival increases. He needs to die less to save more points. The enemy could not believe his eyes, because he believed that he had just shot this guy. The lady did not say that she was happy that Wei Chen had resurrected again. Now was not the time to chat and rejoice, because the sniper's location was unknown, so if he was careless, his few spare lives would not be enough and he would finally die. At the same time, Qin Xian noticed that the two shots came from two completely different directions, as if there were only two snipers. But there were not two of them, he was definitely one. He is an unusual sniper. He must have some kind of ability to control the direction of the pulse so that he can hide his location. In this case, perhaps, until the sniper himself appears, they need to remain quiet in a safe place. Wei Chen didn't even worry about it and just told the girl to calm down. The guy was just going to walk very carefully right in open places, so he would definitely stick his head out someday. The shooter at the same time did not care where they ran. The aiming system determines the range of the entire area in which they are located, so as long as they were in it, he would be able to aim at them without any problems. God would also help him, and both of them would accurately will not be able to escape their death. The attacker was amazed that his opponents did not hide, as if they could not run. The heroes undoubtedly decided to stand in such a dangerous place, knowing that a sniper was hunting for them. Meanwhile, the girl was counting down until the shot was fired. The scoundrel admitted that he really liked to gamble and accepted the challenge. Qin Xian fired her first shot at the enemy. As it turned out, he was flying straight into one of the cars that was standing nearby. At the moment of the hit, fuel began to leak out of the car, and soon there was a gigantic explosion because there was flammable fuel in the car. The enemy hoped that after such a magnificent explosion there was at least something left of their bodies. After all, he wanted to take their trophies as a reward. Fortunately, his opponents were not so simple, and they were able to hide. Using the sewer, they made their way underground and were completely unharmed by the explosion. Only the hero's hand was damaged. After they complete this task, she will be restored. The more important thing is that now he and the girl can be in the smoke and cannot be seen, but the guy immediately understood the location of the sniper. Coughing because of the smoke, the girl could not understand how this would help, because they also could not see anything, because they were in the smoke. Smiling, Wei Chen only said that the girl was wrong and asked her to borrow her gun. Raising the rifle, the hero ordered the girl to lie on the ground and raise her hips up. The lady was immediately indignant, because even in such a situation he begins to joke his stupid and depraved jokes. Soon, she agreed because it was supposed to help. Thus, the girl had to stand in this position until he called her away, and had to be prepared for the guy to shoot. He wanted to do this because he was going to test the new abilities that the system gave him after his revival. One of them was Eagle Vision. It was a legendary ability of the legendary assassin, and could be used to greatly enhance vision and visual perception for a short time after using the ability, as well as adding special effects of seeing through something. With the help of his new ability, the guy was able to see the enemy even through the smoke. After manually adjusting the sniper rifle, Wei Chen prepared to fire. Gradually the smoke cleared, and the enemy was amazed that they had survived, because he blew up the fuel tank. And he was also shocked that right now he could be defeated.